All right, very good. Welcome to the Lander County Commission meeting, Town Board of Battle Mountain, Austin, Board of County Highway Commissioners for August 12th, 2021. So, Brian, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Certainly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to have a moment of silence. All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward. For Lander County Commissioners may break for lunch from 12 p.m. to 1:15 p.m. Any agenda item may be taken out of order, may be combined for consideration by the public body, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. Commissioner reports on meetings, conferences, seminars attended. Patsy?
Thank you. Kingston actually hosted their big fundraiser for the firefighters, the picnic in the park on Saturday. I think the haze kept a lot of people away. We didn't have the attendance, but those that did attend were very generous, and many people that didn't attend sent all kinds of extra money for the raffles and things like that. So we don't have the report, but I'm sure that turned out rather well, and that was always exciting because we didn't have last year. I did attend the Airport Advisory Board meeting on Monday. Several things that are going on, but the biggest thing is we now have it paved all the way into the airport and our access road. So that's wonderful news. And there's several things that we're still in the middle of trying to upgrade, and some of the bathrooms and our different things. But we are still concerned about the water line, and we might look at maybe getting that on the agenda or something, when that might be possible. So, thank you.
No,
I've been to meetings, but everything's slow and not anything to be reported on at this point. Brian?
no report.
I went to the livestock
event board, and they're rewriting their, yeah. Anyway, and we discussed possibly getting some of the items fixed at the rodeo grounds that needs to be repaired, and get on them and get it done.
Okay.
That's about it.
About it. All right. So staff reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars attended.
Alrighty, good morning, Commission. So a couple quick things. I do have a letter here from PLUAC that they've asked me to read into the record. But before that, we do have Dr. Wilcourt we're trying to add him to our team. Hopefully he'll be here later today. He's gonna be a little bit late. And he's had a pretty effective treatment. Hopefully you guys can get him to speak to that. He hasn't had a single patient that has had to be admitted to the hospital since he's been treating them with COVID. So maybe we can get him to speak to that a little bit. And then we also have some, the Civic Center will go into a closed litigation later today to discuss some activities that are taking place at the Civic Center, just to make sure we have board approval or to know where the board stands, since you guys are the administrators of our buildings. And then we have Oasis Online. They are in the building and have been working with us, putting computers together and getting things moving. I should have a contract from them later today that I'll present to you guys next week to get, or not next week, the next commission meeting, to get approved for them to do all of our text type of stuff. They're doing a great job for us. I haven't had a lot of complaints or anything for what they're doing. They're trying to hire somebody full-time here, but we have to get this contract in place before we make that happen. So that's just a general update. They are from Fallon, so they're a little closer to Austin, so they can, it's an hour drive. They can be right out there. They're going to try to get somebody down here for us 3 days a week, and then we'll try to get somebody that they'll send from Fallon to Austin a day a week, so we can keep up on that down there. And then here's our letter from PLUAC. And PLUAC, just so everybody knows, is a Public Land Advisory Planning Commission. That's just what it stands for. Dear Commissioners, the Public Land Use Advisory Planning Commission is writing in regards to increased concerns about existing Lander County water sources. The need for water development and planning is crucial in Lander County because of its limited water resources. How those resources are used in Lander County is fundamental in developing and growing. The commissioners need to know and keep in mind the fact that Lander County's future development and the well-being of its citizens cannot be separated from water resources. Currently, several drought conditions and limited water has caused a huge concern amongst the western states, especially large populated counties in Nevada. PLUAC would like to recommend that Lander County work in conjunction with USDA, FS, and BLM in developing, maintaining, investing in, and existing water resource on public lands for the benefit of its local citizens, livestock, wildlife, and recreation. Please feel to contact PLUAC Board or myself if we can provide the Commission with additional information. Again, thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Dan Tamara, Chairman of PLUAC.
Who sits on the PLUAC board? Which commission? You do, Art?
So we did, all right, very good. Move on.
Laura, do you have any of the numbers for Lander County on COVID?
I apologize, I didn't, do I have any of the updated numbers on COVID? No, I do not.
Because when Brandy, of course, was, we used to get them all the time, and now we don't get them at all. Do they send them to you, or?
They were sending them to me for a long time, and then that organization that was working with Elko, Eureka, and Lander, they haven't been sending the updates since the numbers dropped below a certain percentage. So as soon as I start getting what we have, we'll be back to, I'm sure when cold and flu season kicks back in, we'll be back to reporting that.
So for public comment, for non-agendized items only, persons are invited to submit comments in writing and or attend and make comments on non-agendized items at the board meeting, if any. And discussion of the comments at the discretion of the board. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person, again, at the discretion of the board. Reasonable restrictions may be placed on public comment based upon time, placed upon manner, but public comment based upon viewpoint may not be restricted. So do we have any public comment?
We have public comment, but she's just pulling up, so let me go grab her.
Okay, well, I have something
Muted.
just, small on public comment.
Unmuted.
A family of Doc Peters just wanted to thank Lander County very much for everything that they did. We had a nice turnout, and I'm glad that, and if anybody wants to see the headstone and the dedication, let me know and I'll forward it to them. It turned out very, very nice, and so they just wanted to extend their appreciation.
Has that gone up yet?
Yeah, it's all been put in, so yeah, I will forward it to you so you guys can see. It turned out very, very nice, and so that's all I have for public comment. And they're running, so we'll wait for just a second for them. Keep an eye on. So we're obviously going by this clock as far as the time. Okay, so what does your clock say?
9:08.
Okay, so that's that one.
You ladies are up, you're already on the hot seat, they're waiting for you to talk.
Sorry.
You're gonna push that little, on that. see
There's a
that
little
thing on
button in the
corner
front
right
there. Either.
It's all right, you're all right.
Nice. Real smooth.
There we go.
All right. I'm Amelia Ramos, and we're the 4 volleyball girls because a lot of them were working. We're here on behalf of the 30 that you guys sponsored for the GMS camp. We know that it costs a lot of money, and we're really thankful that you guys
Nice.
put up the money for that.
Oh,
So we have a picture and a card for you guys.
very good, thank you, I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very, very much.
Why don't you hand that to Kathy, just walk up.
Thank you, you're good, thank you very, very much.
Thank you guys very much.
No, it's such a
And
great
then a
picture
good
too.
time was held by all, right?
Yes,
Yes.
very nice, thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? No, you're right. So, Do you wanna start into the consent, so, cause we're gonna have to stop, or what would you guys like to do? Hang on a couple of minutes
You
to.
can start it.
Okay, all right, so I'll go ahead and get started under consent. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action without extensive discussion. Any member of the board or any citizen may request that an item be taken from the consent agenda, discussed and acted upon separately during this meeting. Consent agenda materials are available at the Lander County Clerk's Office for viewing, and copies are available for a nominal charge. 1, approval of August 12th, 2021 agenda notice. Number 2, approval of June 24th, 2021 meeting minutes. Number 3, approval of July 8th, 2021 meeting minutes. Number 4, approval of July 12th, 2021 special meeting minutes. Number 5, approval of July 22nd, 2021 meeting minutes. Number 6, approval of payroll change requests. So am I correct that the only minutes that we got were, what's the date on these?
June 24th.
On June 24th, is that the only ones we received?
And July 8th.
Okay. All right. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve on number 1, 2, 3, and 6.
I'll second.
All right, Patsy made the motion, Brian second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. For discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove the payment of bills, we need to pull out, with that being said, we need to pull out check number 2121515, 212601, 212712. So with those pulled out, do we have a motion?
There's, excuse me, there's also one in there for art,
Oh, okay. Do we have that check number?
212660.
212, one more time, 21 what?
212660.
All right, so we're gonna also pull out 212660. So with all of those being pulled out, do we have a motion for the remainder?
So moved.
So Brian made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
JR second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
I'll make a motion, we approve check number 212515, 212601, 212712.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Patsy made the motion. JR second, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
I abstain.
So,
I now make a motion, we approve check number 212660.
I'll second it.
all right, Patsy made the motion. Brian second, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Oh, is that mine?
Yeah, that one's yours.
Oh, okay, I'll abstain.
All right, very good. So are we moving to the,
Let's just wait 2 minutes.
okay, we're gonna go ahead and wait 2 minutes for the public hearing for on number 2.
Muted. Unmuted.
So we're gonna go ahead and move to number 2 for the 9:15 public hearing for discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the adoption of ordinance 2021-03, adding new title 8, chapter 42 to the Lander County Code so as to prohibit all county government entities and businesses within the county from requiring patrons and residents to provide proof of vaccination for COVID-19. All right. Is there anyone here that wants to speak on behalf of?
I do have a question actually for clarification, on the legal part of it. On the very first part where it says county governmental entity shall not issue COVID-19 passport. And I thought, well, if we need it for something else, like I know some of the cruises and some of the airlines, some of the different countries are saying we want a COVID-19 passport. So besides the fact of what we're doing in Lander County, how would we get a passport if they don't issue it, or could they at least issue it? Because the way I read it is just like I said, I need your legal advice on whether we can get one from our county if we need one somewhere else and decide to do that.
Well, I don't believe our county has the legal authority to issue, number one, to answer that question. All you have to do is for the airline stuff, you have to prove proof of vaccination.
Right, I know that, but I'm also hearing other things about passport. So I was just confused, but if we can't, I mean, if we don't have the authority to issue it to begin with, it's a mute fact.
It is,
But I mean, if they come out, let's just say down the line that they come out with a passport.
well, down the line, if they come out, it's gonna be either state or federal passport. We're not going to, by this act, we are prohibiting our county from being involved in issuing or mandating
Right,
a passport. The state may,
okay,
and the federal government may. And of course, it may be contested, but I anticipate that if they get FDA approval of the so-called vaccine, then they will issue a mandate on the federal passport. That's what I anticipate.
you don't think it would fall back on the counties to do?
No, I don't believe they have the authority to require us to do it.
Okay, thank you.
First, I mean, that's my legal opinion.
Okay, well, that's what I asked for. Okay, thank you.
All right, so,
Particularly with this ordinance now.
Well, I knew that.
so is there any other? So, yes.
Hi, Denise Fortune. I just have a question. When you say passport, that's not the card that they give us when we get vaccinated,
No,
right?
Yes, you're individual.
Okay,
That's a new.
so it's
individual
separate from the card. Okay,
That is covered by HIP. What this ordinance does, it makes it unlawful for the county to demand that its citizens get a vaccine passport. And it makes it unlawful for the businesses to mandate that people that come into their businesses have to have a
Show
vaccine
that.
passport.
okay.
And that's it.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that was different than the card we get
Oh,
because,
totally different.
okay. I have school in October at the Judicial College in Reno. I'm not allowed to get in there without my
Proof.
card.
Proof of vaccination.
That's, yeah, proof of
Yes, so that's
vaccination.
separate
That's an
from the
individual.
passport.
That's
Okay.
an individual.
Okay,
We
that's just
don't-
what I wanted
Yeah.
to clarify. Okay,
But
thank you.
Isn't that why they're going that way, Ted? Because the card is covered by HIPAA, so
Right.
it's your right, it's your medical record, by
Right.
choice whether you want to show it or not. Where a vaccine, that right would be taken away.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Kathy, I'm going to unmute. Will you ask if anybody that's on the phone line if they have anything to say?
Oh, am I good to go? Is there anybody on the phone that has anything to say in regards to this public hearing?
You're good.
All right,
Muted.
so do we have?
Unmuted.
The motion to read it in, right?
Yeah. No, we don't have to read it
It
in.
doesn't have to be read in?
No.
We just did the public hearing on it, is all we're doing on it today,
We're yet approving it now.
and approving it, okay,
So we need a motion to
To approve.
approve the
All right.
ordinance as is.
okay. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
So Brian made the motion, Art seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Very good, very good.
I got a question, and Denise brought up a good point. She's got a card for the If they require her to show that card, isn't that the same thing as a passport?
No.
It's
A
proof that
passport
you've been
is a
vaccinated.
database of who has been vaccinated.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to reveal your,
Well, that's an
You shouldn't have to.
individual thing.
That's an individual choice.
We're saying that we're not going to, Lander County is not gonna make a database with who was vaccinated and who wasn't vaccinated.
okay.
And so they don't have to prove proof of vaccination when they come to, the clerk's office or the treasurer's office or any office, the admin office.
It's not that hard to get proof. All you need to do is get an app on your phone and fill in the information, and there you have it. That was on the news last night.
That's the database. That's the database. And they're trying to set that up as a voluntary database. Make, don't, and what you're doing is you're waiving your HIPAA rights
Yep.
by downloading that into your phone. Even downloading it, you're waiving it.
Yeah.
Because they can acquire the information, that app can from your phone.
Alright. So, alright, we're gonna go ahead and move forward. For discussion or possible action to approve, disapprove the proposed agreement between Lander County and High Desert Educational Association. Alright.
Morning, Kim.
Good morning.
Well, I've read everything over, and I'm assuming that the DA has looked at everything on this and put it together for us on the lease agreement. And I didn't have any questions at all. I thought it was very straightforward.
There are two provisions that are in there that you won't see in most other contracts. And one of them is that all the parties understand, and Kimberly understands that the county will be refurbishing the building simultaneously with them occupying it. And that was our plan, that's our strategy that you guys came up with, and we're gonna continue to do that. Now, we're gonna try to make sure that they're not put out when we do this, but they'll certainly be able to take advantage of our refurbishments while we do it also. And the second part that we put in there is that Lander County is not taking on any liability for the structure of the association and how they created it. And Kimberly understands that,
Yes.
and we went over it, we did it together, the contract, and with those, aside from those two provisions, it's a standard lease agreement between the county and a charitable organization.
Okay, if there's no questions, I will make a motion that we approve the proposed agreement between Lander County and High Desert Educational Association. That is a term of 3 years, and I authorize the chair to sign.
I'll second. So Patsy made the motion, Kathy seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The families, thank you.
Yes, good luck.
Thanks.
I think they have the contract, if you want to say and sign it, or talk to the clerk.
Sure.
Do they have it?
They have the original.
Yeah.
Great.
So, maybe you can give it to sign before you leave.
Oop, be careful. Alright.
That'll be fast enough.
Alright, number 4, update and presentation by Marigold Mine on mining operations and dewatering. Do you have somebody from Marigold here?
Maybe maybe they will be showing up a little bit later, but
Okay.
I was under the impression they'd be here.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and jump forward. Alright, for discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the request of the Fallon Naval Air Station to use the apron space, refueling, and hangar space for the dates of August 22nd, 2021 through August 26th, 2021, and October 3rd, 2021 through October 7th, 2021 at the Battle Mountain Airport.
And Mr. Rob Rule and them, they were running a little late leaving Fallon this morning, so they should be here. They could probably give you guys just a general update at the end if you'd like on public comment, but this is the standard, them, using our report for some training.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second it.
Hart made the motion, Brian second, all in favor?
Aye.
Do we know what kind of aircraft they're gonna bring? Cause I like to take the kids out there.
I don't know, hopefully when they get here, they can let us know.
Okay. So we're good to move forward? All right, we're gonna go ahead and recess the Board of Lander County Commissioners and convene the meeting of the Lander County Health Board, composed of the Lander County Board of Commissioners, Sheriff Ron Unger, and County Manager Bartola Ramos. So,
Well, he's on there until Sunday.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, prior to the doctor talking now, Bertolo's on there,
we have Ross.
he's not really on there, it should be, Dr. Ross, who is the chairman of this board.
Okay, so, it's supposed to be Dr. Ross,
Yes.
instead of, all right, so,
And he's the chairman, so.
yes, okay, so we're going to recess and convene into this now.
Correct.
Yes,
All right, so are we good to go?
yes, so he's, so.
All right, Dr. Ross, you're there.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Well, so this morning I would like to put out the starting point for developing public health regulations and policies. So I wanted to first bring to the board and also allow the county commissioners and their capacity outside of the board even to weigh in on what I see as an important need for developing some public health regulations that are going to guide the practice of our public health policies in the county and which ultimately will apply to all business entities, all entities, governmental entities within the county. So for the start of that effort, I would like to first focus on getting some very solid regulations in place that will address the proper administration of vaccinations. Obviously, that's going to have the upfront issue of the coronavirus COVID vaccinations, but I think that at a higher level that we need to have that incorporated to include all vaccinations, all routine vaccinations. So that would be the first regulation that I would like to promulgate, and obviously I would be going through the DA to make sure that we have all of that formulated properly. Are there any comments?
Well, no, can somebody just explain what the first one he wanted, because I couldn't understand what he was saying.
Am I not coming through clearly on your end?
You're breaking up, Doctor. What
Would it be better to call in on the phone?
He's saying that he wants to come up, he wants to establish and publish a regulations for informed consent for therapeutic and preventative measures to control communicable diseases, particularly the COVID.
Okay.
So he would like to do that now. I don't know if he is, the appropriate question would be, has he made those yet?
Okay.
And, because they're not in the backup, so I'm assuming that we don't have a copy of them yet. But, so if he doesn't, and if he's in the process of making those, then the response is to, for the board, is to, vote to continue the process of doing that or not to. That's my understanding.
Thank you, Ted.
So are you saying that you were in the process of doing that, Dr. Ross?
Yes, Ted summarized that very well. Would it be better if I call in on the phone rather if my connection's not good here?
I think, Doctor, that no matter what, and when people call in, our speakers don't get to the commissioners very well for some reason. The audience seemed to hear well, but the commission, for whatever reason, doesn't get it as well.
Okay. Yeah. So, yes, that's what I'm bringing to the board today, is to get the support, consent of the board to complete this initial regulation, and that being the start of us developing a full panel of the public health policies and regulations for the county.
So, Dr. Ross, my question is, do we have any regulations that actually pertain to any kind of communicable diseases now? I thought we did.
Not at the county level that I'm aware of, at least. We do have the state regulations. I would like to take what is that general regulation and tailor it to the needs of the people of the county.
Okay, and we follow the state regulations because they come in if there is something communicable. So if we adopt the county ones, will those be the same as the state or a little bit different? Or why do we need county if we go by the state? What are you doing differently?
Well,
in regard to vaccine policies and the use of vaccines, there are some very high-level federal law restrictions on how or the proper use of vaccinations, and the state regulations don't address that, specifically regarding informed consent and giving information to the people receiving vaccinations on what they're able to do for recourse should there be adverse events. And so since the state regulations don't address that, I would like to bring that into our policies and regulations, maintaining the level of the mandates at the state level, but then bringing in some more underneath that. So we always have the ability to be more restrictive than the state, but we just can't vary from the state level mandates with being less restrictive.
and that's quite correct, and that's what the duties, the number one duty, in my opinion, of a county health board, to promulgate their own, and we're talking about regulations, we're talking about ordinances here. Make no mistake, this is not, what we've done prior to this is we've made resolutions with all these things in it. We've done 7 or 9 resolutions.
Right, no teeth, just resolutions.
No teeth.
Okay, so if Dr. Ross goes ahead with the regulations, that'll come before us on the health board, and then we'll make a decision whether we want to adopt them or change them or what we want to do.
Right, we'll do it just like we do an ordinance.
Okay,
So
so
you
the,
give them to me, I'll put it in an ordinance form, and we'll present it to the board.
got it.
And this is the main duty, again, of the county public health.
Okay, so the first step is for him to bring the regulations, before us, right?
Well, before me, and I put them in ordinance form.
Oh, so we won't see the regulations per se, we'll see the ordinance
We'll
next.
see there'll be the regulations, because
Right.
regulations and ordinance in this.
I thought we would look at the
situation-
regulations before we did the ordinance,
Well,
but okay.
Regulations are the ordinance.
Okay.
It's regulatory. I mean, you can call them regulations, but they're
Okay,
really.
I understand, but I guess what I was looking for is, are we gonna have input on any of it before it becomes an ordinance
Oh,
before us?
absolutely, yeah.
We'll have input in the ordinance, I know that.
Well, it's the same thing.
Okay. Okay,
Certainly, I absolutely want to have the input of the board, all the members of the board. You know, I have my vision of what is going to serve the people of the county better. But the reason for having the board is you are representatives of the citizens of the county. So I certainly wouldn't want to try to bring anything new into all of this that hasn't had your oversight and your input to really make this something that works.
Right, and at the first step, you'll be able to approve, deny, and or modify. And there'll be a discussion of that. And it won't be a public, unless you wanna call a public hearing. Public hearing is the second step, like we did today on the other ordinance. But yeah, you'll have the opportunity, to, put your input, to modify, to delete, to whatever. You as a Board of Public Health, and once the Board of Public Health recommends the adoption of these, then we'll close that hearing, open up the county commissioner hearing, and based on the recommendation of the Public Health Board, you will adopt or not adopt said ordinances, if that makes any sense.
Clear.
Clear,
The way we've been doing it.
Yeah.
okay, all right.
But you can ask him today to send you a copy of it before I put it in ordinance form. You can certainly do that.
Yeah, I would like to see it before it's in order, you know.
Okay, then,
Oh, certainly.
All right, very good. Other than that, I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
Thanks for helping us, Doug.
Oh, certainly.
so,
Troy, do you have more?
So then the next, so the next step on this item then will be for me to send all of the members of the board a draft of this new ordinance.
right, you have to take a
So
vote
I'll be,
and ask, and approve him proceeding and drafting a copy. So you make a recommendation, you can make a recommendation as the health board, and then close it, and then, and based on that, or you can just do it at the health board. Just make a motion that you're going to, approve him proceeding with this. And,
Even though it doesn't say in here that for.
There's
you
any
said
action.
there's
There's
any
no
on
action.
this one.
okay, so,
So it would just be our approval to go ahead. It wouldn't be a
Right,
Yeah, that's
As a
our
health
approval,
board,
yeah.
which you
So
can
as
do.
a health board, we're just
Right.
approving him to move forward in the
because it has
process.
to go through the, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So if
Alright.
you guys want to kind of pull together and decide whether you want to do that.
I'd like for him to move forward.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Everyone
So-
fine with that?
okay,
Yes. All right.
Yeah, how about the sheriff?
very good, thank you.
Sheriff, are you fine with that?
All right.
I'm gonna throw my pin at you.
I want that part of the record, he said, cool.
All right, so we're good with that?
Yes.
So we can just go
Yes,
back and close
he,
this?
he's got the approval.
All right, so you're good to go. Any questions, Dr. Ross?
No, not of this. I do have another issue to bring to the board.
Okay,
As something looking for your input and advisory. Just what I see developing regarding our schools, I think that there is a very large disconnect between the community and the direction that the schools are taking when it comes to COVID mitigation policies. I just attended the Washoe County School District board meeting 2 nights ago, and it was unbelievably rancorous, and the community does not seem to be getting very much recognition of the school board, the trustees on what that proper resolution is. I can't imagine that there isn't something similar going on in Lander County. So with that in mind, it seems to me that there would be some value in bringing together sort of a town hall type meeting between the trustees of the school board, the Board of Health, and the health officer to bring some of these issues out and try to work to resolution. If there's that disconnect out there, and it certainly seems likely.
Yeah, I think that would be smart to
Your
collaborate.
thoughts?
no, I would agree. Now, I have a question with that. With that being said, as far as the health, board, do we have any, if we adopt regulations as a county as far as, do we have any authority or any teeth as far as adopting anything and having the school district go by it? Do we have any, even though this is a health board, do we have any authority whatsoever to hold the school district accountable for anything that we pass?
That'd be a question for Ted, probably.
Well, from the health officer side of things, I'll let Ted finish this off, but absolutely, once we have a public health ordinance regulation, then every entity within the county is required to comply with that, from my perspective.
Yes, they are. They can't make a policy that conflicts with our policy unless it's a mandate from the state.
Okay.
And that supersedes our
Okay.
county health board.
Well, that's what we're dealing with here, our mandates, unconstitutional mandates, is my opinion.
Right now, the last directive states that they can adopt their own policy as long as it's not in conflict with our regulations. And we really don't have any. All we have
Okay, so let's say we put the regulation in place, they can't adopt something to conflict that, but they're still,
The state can, but they can't.
right, so if the
Right.
state has it, like their current, what is it, Directive 048?
048.
Yeah, 048 would basically supersede what we're trying to do here anyway, what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
kids don't have to wear masks, but all faculty and parents, regardless if you've had the vaccine or not, have to wear masks.
Right.
And,
there's nothing
and then,
we can-
and right, but students have to be tested weekly on some sort of a rotating draw or something. So there's nothing we could do within our own resolutions that would.
Well, so regarding that was one of the issues at the Washoe Board of Trustees meeting, and they voted to follow the Directive 048. It would be possible for the Lander Board of Trustees to vote to not follow that. Obviously, there are financial consequences with that, but it is possible for the school board to come into alignment with the Lander ordinances, even if they're at odds with the state. My understanding, but I leave that to council there.
That's quite correct, but they would have to, the trustees of the school would have to state that, take a vote and say they're not going to follow the policies of Directive 048.
It'd require them to take local control.
They would take local control and they would lose a lot of strings that are attached. They've taken every financial incentive that the state and the federal government has offered. They are stuck with certain strings by doing that, and they continue to do that. And I don't know how they're going to get out of that without having to return that money, to be honest.
Okay. All right, any more questions? All right, are we ready to roll back over?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ross. All right.
Thank you all.
We're gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting of the Lander County Health Board and reconvene the meeting of the Lander County Board of Commissioners. So do we want to
Go back to.
go to number 8?
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
All right, we're gonna go forward to number 8. All right. All right, for discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove the contract between Lander County and Dr. Robin John Wolfport for the service of community health medical director.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Morning, doctor.
Hit your little button.
There you
The
go.
red one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, right in this, right in
Right in the
begin-
center.
Right
In the
center.
beginning, yeah, there you go.
There you go, all right, you're on.
Good morning, I'm Robin Wilcourt.
All right. So I had a couple of questions as far as, if you are needed while you're in service at the clinic, how is that going to be allowed to be able to cross over if there was something needed, then you're needed? How is that going to work?
That's an excellent question because I don't even know the answer to that. I received a directive earlier on when I went to speak with our CEO about my possibly taking this position, and his response was that it could not in any way interfere with anything that was going on in the clinic, and that Anything I did would have to be out of hours when I'm not on duty at the clinic. So in an emergency situation, my guess is that the emergency room physicians would have to get involved unless I were relieved from my duties in the clinic and were covered during that time. So I really actually haven't got this clarified.
So, just for clarification, this is not an emergency type of a position. This is a position that everything is scheduled out in advance, so we can work around his schedule.
Okay.
I did look into that, talk with Jason about it. He's pretty steadfast on, no mixing of any sort. So that's how this position worked like that for Dr. Peters, and I'm sure it'll work the same for Mr. Wilcox.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. We so appreciate you stepping up to do this for us. On the original contract to be signed, though, I would ask on the very next to the last page, number 4, that we do complete the actual address of Battle Mountain under there, which was, I think, just something we missed on the typewriter or computer.
That's easily fixed.
Oh, yes, but I wanted the contract right for you. Thank you.
So
Our county manager had asked, to basically ask you about the treatment that you've been doing with patients that's had a 100% success rate. Could you share that with us, what's been going on that you see from your experience with the COVID?
I'd be delighted to. Could I expand on that as well?
Yes, please.
This will probably get me into massive trouble, but I'm willing to stand by my principles, and I don't mind getting into trouble on the basis of standing by my principles. It is clear from worldwide data now coming in that the COVID-19 vaccination, I'm going to use that word very loosely, when it comes to the mRNA vaccines, are failing miserably. We have Israel, Gibraltar, Iceland, Mauritius, and the Seychelles, which are small places where the vaccination program has been effective to almost 90% of the eligible population. And in each one of those places which were using the mRNA vaccines, mostly Pfizer, the infection rate currently with the variants, and we're told it's Delta, but that's not provable because no one is testing for Delta. There is no Delta test. I want to make that clear. There is no Delta test. But whatever it is that's occurring, and we can assume that maybe it is the Delta variant, that almost all the hospital admissions are currently in people who are vaccinated with the mRNA vaccine. This should make us all stand back for a moment and assess this in the scientific light of day without politics getting involved and people's emotions getting involved. But I'm not seeing that happening. Obviously, all around the world, the hysteria is extraordinary, and the truth is very hard to stand by, because the pressure on all of us is to comply with what turns out to be very bad directives coming from our authoritative bodies like the CDC and the Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease. So this is very discouraging, really, because the next plan of attack, it seems, is to revaccinate people with the very things that haven't worked. And that makes no sense to me whatsoever. So there's that. There's another principle that we violated, which is actually producing this change in the virus that's allowing it to regrow in the community. And that principle was elucidated clearly a year ago when the warning was put out by many scientists and those who specifically work in the area of COVID viruses with the human to animal transmission, which is really what's important here. And that is, you never, ever vaccinate during an epidemic. I'm going to tell you that may come as a surprise to you, but I want to walk you through the steps of how we've got into this terrible mess that we're in today. This whole pandemic could have been finished by May last year if we had paid attention to principles. So the first principle is you never vaccinate in a pandemic. So I want you to think of the scenario that normally happens before we have a pandemic. Usually, our authoritative bodies, like the CDC, have a warning, usually coming from China, because that's nearly always where these viruses come from, not exclusively, but mostly. We get a warning that, say for example, influenza A, variant B, is going to be what they think is the pandemic coming in the winter of this year. And so somewhere in July through September, our drug companies gear up and make a vaccine for that particular strain of influenza A. And we become vaccinated with that during the end of the summer months, because we're getting prepared for what we think is coming in winter. That means when the virus arrives on our doorstep, sometime in October, November, it's coming in a community that has largely got antibodies to it. And so we fight that virus off very easily. It doesn't have the ability to transmit rapidly through the community because people already have the antibodies and they confine it very quickly to whatever port of entry it came into. Now, obviously, we know that every year the virus does escape into the community. If you look at the 2018 numbers, 60 million Americans infected, 60,000 died. Now, I'm going to pause here for a moment. Did you know those statistics and did they frighten you? Were you wearing masks? Were you told to shut down your communities? And the answer was no. So we happily let 60,000 people die, including children, without raising a single teardrop. So I want you to think about that for a minute. So what did we do this time? Because of the terrible fear we had, and I admit I was suckered into believing that this was a terrible, terrible virus, we waited until it escaped across the country. And then we started the vaccination program. Now, the principle of this that goes wrong is that when you introduce a vaccine in a sea of virus, which is the exact opposite of what we've always done, we've introduced the vaccine when the virus wasn't here. Once we've introduced the vaccine in a sea of virus, the human body doesn't react quite the same way. And so we respond to the vaccine, sort of, because that's what we mostly do anyway. But unfortunately, we're overwhelmed by gazillions of virus particles, and they mutate very quickly. So we give them a massive advantage in this environment, and so the variants pop up. And we see exactly what was predicted. It is, the virus is here, the pandemic is on. We introduce the vaccines, and there is a temporary response. And you see a lowering of the infection rate, and then it takes off again like a rocket. The new takeoff are the variants that we induced because we began the program at the wrong time of year. And this is really tragic because we're not going to get rid of these variants now. They're going to be with us forever. So the question that comes up is, do we lock down when the Epsilon variant has been announced or the Mu variant is announced? Do we go back into that? Are we stuck with this for, like Iceland said, we may be locked down for 15 years? That health officer has since walked it back a bit, but they haven't said 10 years or 5 years. So they're thinking that this is going to go on forever and we're going to keep locking down. And the question I have to ask anybody who knows anything about COVID-19 is, how bad is this as a infection? And yes, it's a tiny little bit worse than influenza A, but that's all. It's not Ebola. It's not smallpox. It's not one of those. So why are we doing what we're doing? I don't have an answer to this, but I do know this. We've done the wrong thing and we're going to have to live with it. And I will comply with the directives that come down, with one exception. And I'm going to state it now, and you can fire me on the spot before you hire me. And it goes like this. If there is any directive to inoculate our children with the mRNA vaccines, I'm going to go public and scream. Children all over the world now, by the thousands, are coming down with the complications of the COVID-19 mRNA chemicals. I will not dignify them by the name vaccine. And it's mostly young males in the 12 to 29-year-old age group. This is wrong. We should not be doing this. And I will yell and scream about that because it is absolutely inappropriate. The data are in. And I have no idea why our officials, who we rely on to protect us, are suggesting, in the face of overwhelming data, that we continue to ramp down the age at which we stab our kids with these chemicals. So I'm going to state that for the public record. I will not back down.
Doctor, could I ask? Could I ask you to speak to, you'd made mention, and I think that you deserve credit for this, it's something that the community I would like to get out, the treatment that you've come up with and the success rate that it's shown.
Right, so that's to answer your question. I'm sorry
No,
I
you're
went
fine.
through this
No,
long
thank you for
convoluted,
all the
but I
data.
really wanted you to see the background now
Yes,
of
absolutely.
what I'm about to say. So the background is, had we last year followed the advice of many countries that did not have the ability to buy or have access to the vaccines, they had to come up with something. India is a good example of the devastation that this caused, because even if it only affects 0.03% of the population in death, if you have a population of 1.4 billion, that is still hundreds of thousands of people being affected. So while on the one hand the numbers are terrible, on the other hand, in a naive population that has no antibody protection, we're going to expect these numbers. We saw it in 1918 with the Spanish flu. All right, so put that as the background. Those people came up with, what do we do? And it was very obvious in the countries that were using hydroxychloroquine, which was most of Africa and large parts of Southeast Asia, where malaria is endemic and where people take hydroxychloroquine every day, that they noticed that the epidemic wasn't taking off like it was everywhere else. And that is where Dr. Montaigne in Germany, Luc Montaigne, who was the co-discoverer of HIV, came up with a program to try and address this virus. And so the program was either using hydroxychloroquine, and it turns out later on ivermectin. And we found that one of the interesting things was the people who were dying from COVID-19 often were people in nursing homes. Why were they in particular getting suffering the ravages of this virus and getting COVID-19 and killing them? One of the first signs was they were low on vitamin D. And when you think about it for a minute, I look at our long-term care residents, they don't get out in the sunshine almost ever. So they are low on vitamin D, which leads us to the next part of what I was thinking. We should be making sure that our whole community has significant levels of vitamin D. We see very low levels at Battle Mountain because we get the blood work, and we have very low levels of vitamin D here. The kids in the summertime, of course, are fine. It's winter when they're all protected and we don't have vitamin D, which is why all these viruses pop up in winter. It's when we have vitamin D levels that are low. It's really obvious. So we instituted ivermectin, vitamin D, zinc, very important for zinc, to get the ivermectin or the hydroxychloroquine into the cells that are going to be infected. And once we instituted that program with people who were very symptomatic or had low oxygen levels, and once they had chest x-ray evidence of COVID, we then put them on steroids. And from that moment on, which goes back to November last year, with the exception of one person, we've had nobody leaving this community as a transport and nobody dying.
Wow.
And I think that's amazing. There are people all over the world popping up talking about this. A medical officer, a pathologist from Indiana, has a YouTube video on this now, and it's exactly the same program. He reported the exact same results, no transports, no deaths. We could have stopped this thing in its tracks if we hadn't been taken off track by Dr. Fauci and the people who obscured the data. Why have they done this? I'll leave you to think about it, but I can tell you there's no money to be made in instituting the program I just suggested. It's a loss leader.
I can't thank you enough, and you know, you got some pretty big shoes to fill, replacing Dr. Peters. I'm really excited to have you on our team. I really am. About a year ago, Cindy had an MRI, a mammogram. The first question that they asked her was, are you having any breast pain? Did you take the vaccine? Okay, that was never announced. And then it's my understanding that the chemicals in this vaccine are dangerous for reproductive organs in women, and these chemicals are settling in the ovaries in women.
Yes. We were told in the beginning that at the injection site, the mRNA vaccines would continue to reside and would not escape into the general circulation. This has turned out to be not true. And they would have known that. They had to know that. They had excellent animal data, particularly in the rat model, and I know you can't extrapolate rats to humans, although sometimes I think we're closer to them than we would like to believe. But the fact of the matter is the virus is accumulating at 20 times the rate that it's accumulating in other tissues, in the ovaries. We've seen women now reporting menstrual irregularities, loss of early pregnancy, at a rate that seems to suggest, and this is always the thing, just because there is what appears to be some linkage, it doesn't mean that it's causative. It looks like a correlation, but you have to get a lot of data to know that's to be true. It is not, though, a very nice thought that the young women in our community will be accumulating these substances in their ovaries, because what's going to come down the line from there, nobody knows. But I'm suspecting we may well have a rash of ovarian cancer coming down in the future, and we'll be able to trace it back to these abnormal chemicals. Remember, they modify the genome, they change your genetics. Who wants to change the genetics in ovaries? I mean, this is not a good idea at all. I mean, you wouldn't come up with this as a plan of attack anywhere if you weren't actually trying to plan an attack, I think. So I'm very concerned about that. In the young males, the myocarditis there's no great explanation except that the COVID-19 mRNA chemical sits on the ACE receptor, and the ACE receptor is what's in all of our vascular tree. That's, some of you are probably taking ACE blockers. Lisinopril, for example, is a drug. Some of the antihypertensives work on the ACE receptor. It's the same place where the spike protein of COVID-19 goes to create its havoc. The spike protein does exactly the same thing. So the spike protein is producing in many people exactly the same symptoms as the actual COVID-19 itself. So we're living, I think, in an extremely dangerous time when our authorities, who should be protecting us and telling us the truth, are doing exactly the opposite. And it makes it very hard. As a physician, I feel for the first time in my life, I am not proud to be a member of the medical profession. I feel almost ashamed that I'm being asked to do things that violate my very sense of ethics. But that's the place I'm in. And I'm willing to still accept that.
Well, with that, I'll make a motion that we approve.
So, this is Dr. Ross. May I add in a comment?
Go ahead, Dr. Ross.
Thank you. So, I heartily support what Dr. Wilcourt has put forward to all of you. He is spot on. A couple of things I'd like to add. To first get back to what I presented to the Board of Health. My purpose in developing the regulations around informed consent are to anticipate that this set of vaccinations will soon be fully approved by the FDA, and then the follow-on to that will be mandates. I want to do everything that I can as a health officer to ensure that each person presented with that decision knows all of the consequences. And so that is because of how serious the negative consequences are of this vaccination that Dr. Wilcourt very clearly laid out. Just another piece of information. It turns out that most likely that spike protein is actually what is pathological in the viral infections, and that's what we're putting into people in the vaccine. So we're likely directly causing damage because of what we're delivering in that vaccine. So I just want to support everything that Dr. Lockhart said, and then also my plan for the public health intervention for any future recurrences of new variants or outbreaks, and even getting into the cold and flu season, is to have ivermectin freely available to any member of the community to keep them from getting a disease, and then also available to treat anything that might come up.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. I absolutely appreciate your support. We're obviously on the same page. There must be many people like us who are horrified at what is happening to our population and the fact that our voices are being silenced for the most part.
Wow. So, go back to my motion to approve the contract between Lander County and Dr. Robin John Wilcourt for the services as Community Health Medical Director. And again, thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your support.
Please come back to us. I want you here.
Thank you very much.
So a second?
Thank you, Doc. Yeah, J.R. second.
Okay, so Art made the motion, J.R. second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we can take a break?
Yes, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
So we'll take a 10-minute break.
This conference will now be recorded. Unmuted.
We're gonna reopen number 5 for the Naval Air Station. Do you gentlemen wanna come up and speak? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Are we live? Just making
You're
sure.
live.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Push the button or not push
Ready
the
to
button.
go.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning. Heard we had already been on the docket, but we got swung back a little bit. We had a little bit of a later start than we had expected this morning. Airfield doesn't open until a little bit later, so the aircraft can fly a little bit later in the night. So basically, rather than try to just start at 7 in the morning and go till 12 o'clock at night, they squish that back so they can cover some of the air traffic control coverage. So we're about an hour and a half later than we thought we were going to be. So again, good morning, Commission. My name is Rob Rule, and I work out at the Naval Air Station Fallon. I work directly for the commanding officer, Captain Evan Morrison, and I represent basically him inside of Nevada and the Navy mission here. And so I'm always trying to be a good conduit between the military and the local folks. I'm here this morning to request the use of Battle Mountain Airport for 5 days in August, and then another 5 days further on in October. And basically that request is to use apron space for those 5 days, and then hangar space in order to support that mission. We've been able to use the facilities once or twice a year for the last couple of years, and that support has been really fantastic. The use of Battle Mountain Airport really facilitates training we can't do. It's good for this training squadron to be away from the base and be away from some of the creature comforts that they're used to. Like if a part breaks, you can't just go to the other side of the base and pick it up. You're farther away. You got to be able to react and respond to those challenges. So the use of the Battle Mountain Airport has been really fantastic. And really, what it does is it replicates the scenario where most of these helicopter squadrons would be based on a boat. What happens is that when they have a larger bombing mission, they'll pre-deploy the helicopters like on land, and it's called a forward operating base. So they're not 2 or 3 hours away, like they're in the carrier group. They wouldn't have to fly all the way to get to the coast and then all the way to get more inland. They're pre-deployed there, and really that support for the helicopter squadron is in case an aircraft is down as part of a bombing mission, and what they really do here is that forward operating base would be here. They're able to fly into the Nevada desert and go rescue an actual simulated rescue of a Navy pilot in the Nevada desert. So really, what they do again is they take that pilot or air crew out into the desert, kick them out of the back of the truck, and just drive off. So you're out there. You need to support yourself and. Really, that training is dual purposed. One is that pilot needs to evade and any kind of enemy. If you're in an enemy country, you need to be able to make sure that you're evading that enemy, and then being able to be rescued by the helicopter squadrons that would leave here out of Battle Mountain. So it's a very complex scenario. It's a very high pressure situation. For both the downed pilot and the helicopter squadrons, he said, because that scenario is really simulated where the bad guys are out searching for that pilot, and so you don't want the bad guys to get you. You want the good guys to come get you. So a lot of times these are staged at night, and where you have to stay hidden, and then there's certain ways to be able to be found by the helicopter pilots. So that again is something that's not done for the Navy anywhere else in the U.S. Only done here as part of the Air Wing training here at Fallon. So again, I greatly appreciate the opportunity that Battle Mountain gives us, and again, it's a one-of-a-kind type of training that's done here in Nevada, Commander Klein and I really appreciate that support, and hope our Navy personnel have been on their best behavior, and that's kind of one of the reasons we kind of continually come back, is so we get good feedback, make sure that we're doing a good job, wiping things down and being a good job steward at the airport, make sure that everybody's behaving in town. And then we'd like to know if there's anything that we can help or provide, answer questions from the commission here on our side. So otherwise, hand this back over to Commander Klein to just give a brief overview of kind of what that looks like.
Sure, thank you, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me again. This time I brought Lieutenant Madeline McMullen with me. She's last time and going forward going to serve as our on-scene instructor. To make sure things go well. She's a subject matter expert in anything that is special operations, weapons, tactics and procedures, urban takedowns. She's our SME, our local badass for that. Sorry for the language. But again, we greatly appreciate the use of the airfield. The last squadron that came through HSC 4 is already downrange, implementing some of the things that they learned here while at Battle Mountain, to include distributed planning. So they've already separated from their carrier group and off and more clandestine operations, but they're able to plan kind of regionally separated from the rest of the air wing, and then execute as planned, which is one of the major things that they learned here, is how to communicate, plan on a classified basis, obviously, so that the enemy doesn't get a hold of those plans, and then execute and debrief those. So I'm here to answer any questions and receive any feedback that you all may have. And again, thank you so much for your time and the past use of the airspace. Going forward, with you all's permission, we'd like to again have a military presence on the airfield from the 22nd to the 26th of August, and then for the second. And my apologies for not coming again after this one, but we're going straight into the next one on our side for the training, with 1 week of mountain flying course in between. So the second course for the next squadron going forward after that would be the 3rd through the 7th of October. And I think you will have that paperwork in front of you. If not, I can provide it. I brought it here as well.
Already been approved, so.
Thank you all so much.
I think Art had some questions. though.
Again, though, I'm here to answer any questions or receive any feedback to make it better. I think, obviously for both sides going forward, so.
Let us know if Maverick shows up, okay?
So, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
So nothing further, no comments or questions? I said, we're always welcome feedback. I think, the county knows how to get in touch with me. I said, if there's anything that, good, bad, otherwise, we can make sure that we're being good listeners. And that's part of the reasons why we're up here, is rather than just kind of send folks up and not think about it again, make sure that we're doing a good job and keeping up with you guys.
Well, we appreciate all your service. We appreciate you coming here and being part of the community. We're so glad that we can help you out. It's a thrill for us, and we're proud of all of you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're all amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks
and
again.
And just for the record, I'll tell you guys that everybody that's came to town, the calls that I've received have been they're great people that, first is concerned what's going on here, is something going on with COVID, is the government coming in, what's happening.
Yeah.
Once that's explained to them, that everybody's really comfortable, they appreciate it, and we've heard nothing but positive feedback from everything that's happening there, as far as I've.
Oh, absolutely.
Nothing but
Good
training,
news.
I promise.
Good news.
Very good.
I would like to say that being kicked out of the back of the truck and it drives off in the Nevada desert sounds like the number of hunting trips.
Yeah.
Did bad guys chase you, sir?
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen, very
Yep,
much.
thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. Safe travels. All right, we're gonna move forward to number 7.
Thank you, guys. Thanks,
Yes.
guys.
You asked if John Stern's on the line.
Is John Stern on the line?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
All right. Am I good to go? All right.
Muted. Unmuted.
All right. All right. So, presentation by Nolina Castellanos and John Stern, discussion on a grant provide funds for Great Basin College and the high school dual enrollment students.
Okay, Nolina Castellanos, and I'm here before you as a citizen and a parent to a student who's actually doing the dual credit program. I originally, to give you a little background, I requested it to be on the agenda, but we weren't sure I had the authority to do that because I'm not affiliated with the school. And since doing that, I reached out to Mr. Stern, so he did the request for me. We then found out that he might not have the authority to do it either. So, yeah, so I reached out to Jill Chambliss, who's with GBC doing the dual credit program, and after talking to her, I've actually found out a lot more and discovered that we probably don't even need the high school because the way Great Basin does the dual credit program, it's offered to homeschooled students, any Lander County student basically that wants to participate in the dual credit. GBC does that. So basically what we'd be trying to ask, I guess in the future, and figure out how to word it and who's to actually do the request, about possibly having the county do a third-party sponsorship through Great Basin and sponsor the students that actually are trying to do the dual credit program. And so she's here to answer questions, and Mr. Stern's there, I guess, at this point to just confirm that the high school will continue to assist the students with the high school who want to do the dual credit program.
So my question is, why are you coming to the county? Why is the school not handling this out of their budgetary funds?
The school used to have a grant that they don't have anymore.
And what happened to that grant?
I guess it terminated
COVID.
during COVID.
Pardon?
COVID happened. So it used to be through Perkins funding, and both the college and the high school were able to apply for the grants. After COVID destroyed all of their funding, there is no more grants available for any of the students.
Do you still get distributed school money?
No, so as far as the college goes, the students pay half the price of the regular credit fees, and it goes straight to the college.
No, I want to know if the school district still gets DSA money for each student.
I'm not sure. I'm
Well,
not
we need some questions answered,
affiliated
because
with them.
if you have students get, I don't know what DSA is, I think it's like $7,000, and those kids are only in the high school for half the day, then their DSA needs to be prorated and used so that they can go to college. There's plenty of money in the school.
Yeah, exactly.
Plenty of money.
Mr. Stern's on the phone, you can ask, Principal Stern.
And what position? is he in?
He's the high school principal.
High school principal.
High school principal.
Mr. Stern,
Yes, sir.
you get DSA money for these students, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, why don't you just prorate the money? If they're not in school for a whole day, just prorate that money and contribute that towards their college expenses.
Well, some of those students are in school. They're in our library taking online classes. It's not like they're still part of our school. We still have expenses that we're using to serve them.
And I can also answer part of that
I mean,
question.
that money is being utilized. We still have a teacher who oversees them here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It doesn't sound like.
No, you're breaking up. I really wish you would have come in person.
I'm glad to be here. I had another meeting. I just stepped out of to be here. Yeah.
Well, priorities.
So,
I do have a question. Have you brought this forth to the school board to ask for funding? Or your
No,
superintendent
because,
to ask for
I mean,
funding?
from talking to Jill, it would appear that it also affects other people in Lander County, not just the kids in high school.
So all of the kids, any kid that's in high school, whether they're in their homeschooling or like the new cooperative thing that they're doing, all of those kids can do this. So we're looking to hopefully be able to make that an opportunity. We do have quite a few students who would like to take some of these classes, but funding wise, they're just not able to. Their parents don't have the ability to help them. And as far as the students being enrolled in the high school, many of these kids, yours included, they're taking 5 classes at the high school plus these additional college classes. So they're not just only taking college classes. They do various things at the high school still, especially up until through their junior year at the very least. And then their senior year, most of them are still more than half time that they take classes at the high school in addition to their college classes.
Well, not to be mean, I don't see where it's a commission problem. I mean, it's on the tax roll. School's one of our highest tax, we pay taxes, and I don't understand why they can't apportion money to help kids that want to do these dual credit courses, and then why it becomes a problem for the commission to spend more taxpayer money when it's already on the tax roll to support our schools. So, I mean, I don't know, that's just how I see it.
One note.
Yes, please.
This money is not coming to the school. I mean, I put this on the agenda so we could support kids who don't have financial resources. This money goes directly to Lander County students. So, I mean, we have wrestling camps, we have football camps, we have volleyball camps. This is just on an academic level. We're asking the county to sponsor students who need support.
What's the total cost of the grant?
So right now, it's only at about $21,000 per semester. It can change based on, I know, so I didn't include the homeschooled students entirely in this count because I wasn't sure what numbers we were looking for. But if you want to include the homeschooled students in it, there's probably 6 more that you would add to that. Some of the students only take 1 or 2 classes, so it would only be, $150 to $300 per student in those cases. Some of them are full-time students.
The commissioners, it's not an action item, it's for discussion, but I believe the idea is that if the county wants to help, whether they're homeschooled or they go to high school here, to set up a line item and the kids who want to go through this would then invoice the county for those costs, and the county would then give the money per child, not give the whole money to Great Basin.
No, it would
to anybody
be,
else,
right.
but to start a line item here in the county and then have them individually access it if they're going into that program. Is that
It's so the way that the college sets it up, we call it a third-party sponsorship. And basically, I say these are all of the kids that are involved in this program. They create a bill and then they send it to the county. The money never goes through the school district at all.
and I know that in the past handful of years, the kids who have come out as seniors and graduated with dual associate diplomas is incredible. That's absolutely incredible. And so I know I know a couple of them that have done that, and it's sad that money is not there anymore to do that, because it really is and it really gets them kicked off to when they do go to have to finish their 4-year degree. Some of them only need that 2-year degree, so that's nice. So the other ones who have to finish it and then go off to college, at least they have their toes in the water of what's going to be halfway expected to when they go to college. And it really has helped countless kids, and the ones who have graduated with dual degrees is incredible. So I think it's a great program.
Was it the school or Great Basin that put in for the grant previously?
Both, actually.
Both.
So the funding was available to both ends of it, and the school district, Lander County was actually the only school district that bothered to put in for the grant themselves. So they had their own for the students. Everybody else used the colleges.
So is this actually based on a financial need? If we do something like this, would it be for any student that wants to continue? Because those that can afford to do it are still doing it, right?
So I guess that part would be up to you. I can say when the college was doing their grants, it was the same pool of funds that the high school had. We basically used the high school counselors, and they were placed in tiers. So we had tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and that was like their financial need. And we used the schools to help. So like anybody that qualified for free and reduced lunch automatically qualified for funding through these grants.
I see.
So it could be set up a similar situation like that. It would be, at that point, it would basically be.
Because
up
otherwise
to
it looks
you
like we're
guys.
saying, let's give free education to everybody to go on to college.
And it's not, so there are stipulations. Not everybody can just come and take the classes, as far as the high school does have their own requirements. And then like with the homeschooled students, I can tell you because I still have to do like advising appointments and things like that with them. If they're not ready for college, we don't let them do college classes. So some of them, and there are quite a few of them that are kids that live further out on some of the ranches, and we've had a couple kids from Austin that they just don't have the ability to take the classes that they want to take through their schools, so they take them through the college. And there's just some different situations like that, but it's not just a total free-for-all. And I would also even suggest putting stipulations on it, as far as if we gave you money this semester and you failed all of your classes or you withdrew from all of them, you don't get funding the next semester. And in part, that's the same thing that it sets them up for the real world, because that's what happens when you go to college as well. If you get financial aid and you fail every one of your classes, you're now on probation. So instead of it just being it's free money and you can just have it whenever you want it, it kind of lets them know that no, there really are consequences. And
I think that they have to have a certain GPA as well.
They do.
Because it's absolutely senseless to have, somebody who doesn't have a specific GPA to give them money if they can't pass their high school classes. Then it's kind of
Right.
senseless. It's a waste
Yeah.
of money to give them money for college classes.
And we have other guidelines too, that like math, like if they haven't taken pre-calculus at the high school or through their home schools, we don't let them take it through the college yet unless they show ACT scores. If you give me an ACT of 28, then I'll let you take whatever math class you want to take because you're able to. But we don't just let them like blindly choose things. They do have actual guidelines. And a lot of like the homeschooled students, they're using this as replacements because they don't have it available to them through their homeschool programs. So
This is a question for Lakin as a school board and trustee. Is there money that could be budgeted or set aside for this purpose?
Yeah, I was just gonna, Lakin Sullivan for the record, I was just gonna come ask that I think this is something that should go in front of the school board for sure, because as a member, I didn't know that this funding
Right.
wasn't available anymore, as some of the other people may not either. So I definitely think it's worth talking to them. From the county side, as a fiscal officer, just my opinion, I don't think that we wanna maybe open that door to giving grants to individual people for schooling, because
It wouldn't be a grant, it'd be a sponsorship.
but
I did bring it up in the
There's
school board
two,
meeting.
there's two
just so
questions
you're
you
aware.
need to ask.
I did.
First, to see if you have any appetite for something.
They didn't
like
have an
this.
answer for me.
Second, if you do, then is this the appropriate time of the year to ask for a grant?
Well, no, it's pre-budget time.
So this is kind of a double question, and this is just a discussion, so this is great that we're all discussing this. But you guys have to decide, perhaps you wanna decide that they go in front of the school board first.
That would be my
And-
suggestion, is they start there.
Well, Norina says she did.
I
What did-
brought it up during the public comment the last time, and nobody had an answer, when I told them the grant was no longer, and they couldn't answer me. Not
So
Did
can
you
you get-
request an agenda item with the school board?
No, because after the meeting, I went and asked them, and right after the meeting, while they were still sitting there, they told me it was no longer. So they had the answer, they just
Yeah,
didn't
I
provide it
find-
to me on public comment.
I appreciate your effort, but I find it absolutely impossible to believe that there's not grant money out there for this kind of a program, especially after the COVID.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Especially after the COVID. I think maybe somebody just forgot about putting in for the grant or something.
In this particular one with the Perkins funding, it truly no longer exists. They said that this funding is not available. Perkins funding is generally the same funding that funds like the CTE programs and things like that. And John, you can add more to that to explain what Perkins does. But I know that funding was completely dissolved. And I can also say this is my 13th year doing dual credit, and we have asked, when I used to teach at the high school, we asked the school district at that time, and were told that they would not fund this. We've had multiple changes since then, so maybe newer people are more willing to listen to that, but at the time we were told absolutely not, that they can pay for it themselves because they were high school students.
Well, maybe that grant ended,
So-
but I'm sure there's other grants out there. Do you have a grant writer?
Does the school have a grant writer?
What?
Yes, we do. Yes, sir.
So is that something that you would, be willing to do, is, go back in front of your school board, Mr. Stern, and do, an agenda item and see what the feel is for that, since you do have a grant writer?
I mean, I'm absolutely look at any avenue to help kids. I mean, that's my only priority from the school point of view, is to help kids who can't fund this.
So that would be my.
So absolutely, I'm willing to.
That would be my suggestion. is
I'm
to start
absolutely
back
willing
there.
to.
And
I would entertain that if there's students that need help with, their college funding, why don't they come to us and ask?
Because you get a lot of
If you wanna
parents
do
that
it like that,
I
I
did,
mean.
but do we want to set that precedent?
Yeah, you know, in the real world, you pay for your own college.
Yeah, no,
I
exactly.
did.
It's.
Well, in the real world, you pay for your own camps too, but we helped them this year because of the pandemic. So the pandemic has hurt a lot of things that are happening with our kids, and the county has stepped up and backed our kids in that effort. You have kids right now that are excelling and trying to do dual credits, and you guys are like, I'm not gonna fund any money. I mean, come on, you guys have spent how much money this year on
Well, it's not that,
extra
that's
things?
not, that's
But
not.
you haven't exhausted the option.
No,
I mean,
but
that's-
I'm willing to,
That's
and
that's
I'm
my
willing
main
to.
point.
That's exactly.
My
I think that
other,
we-
it's not necessarily a concern, but just something to think about, that if it goes through the school district, then all of those homeschooled students would be excluded from it. They wouldn't be able to receive any
Why?
of the
They
help.
still get the DSA money, don't they, Art? Homeschool students?
I'm not sure how
I don't,
that.
I don't believe
They,
so.
they don't?
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought they did.
The only ones that get they still get the DSA, the ones who do the Excel thing like they did when they were, not the homeschooled, but the
Like
one.
the alt
The
ed type
extended,
of.
Yeah,
the extended,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, the ones that are still tied, the ones who
Do,
aren't.
but the homeschool ones
No.
don't.
So we'll, let's try this, let's try having, Mr. Stern put it on the school board agenda, go that, see what the taste is, and then come back with something a little different, and see where we go from there.
Who would we have do the request next time?
Mr. Stern said it should be the one that should be doing it.
Well, I
For
don't
that
know.
part of it, but I mean, as far as the homeless ones.
I don't know if Mr. Stern has the authority as a principal
Yeah.
to make a request on
Right.
For the-
behalf of the school system. It would have to be a trustee
Okay,
from, just like one of your employees of your admin department can't go requesting
Okay.
things without your
all right.
permission.
So
Same
then,
thing,
if you have a
same
trustee that's willing to go forward, then we'll start there. And then revisit it after we find out what the taste is there.
Yeah, I would think I would think the board would have an appetite too. I mean, you're assisting, that's their job, right? It's to assist and help students, so I wouldn't see why they would shut down
And then we'll
budgetary
have to
line for
revisit the
that, but-
homeschool ones.
That
because
was gonna be my next
obviously
question,
Right.
if
an
that
issue,
would.
so we can revisit that as soon as we figure out what's gonna go on there, so.
Well, they may be able to address that at the school board as
Right.
well.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it may be something that should be considered for their agenda item, is addressing, them homeschool students presenting to the board and getting reimbursed. I don't know,
Yeah.
or paid in advance,
Yeah.
for those who can't.
And the school district, currently they do have, it's called the White Knight Fund, and that's what pays for all of, so the students aren't responsible for their books at this point. That White Knight Fund funds all of their books.
That's not entirely true. I had to buy some of my daughters last year.
Did you?
Yep.
Yeah, it partially pays for
Yeah,
both.
partially pays for it, yes.
So we can start there and then revisit it after we find out what the board says. All
That's
right?
fair.
All right.
And
Thanks,
just
guys.
have Lincoln, you'll do it when we get to that point?
Okay, very good. Thank you, ladies, very
Yep.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moving forward. So now, are we now number 9?
Number 9.
Since we jumped around a little bit. So, all right, for discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the free swim day on August 21st, 2021 for the 12th annual Battle Mountain Burners Car Show. Battle Mountain Burners are a 501c3 organization.
Hi, Alicia Price, how are you guys? Good. You guys all are aware what the Battle Mountain Burners is? Yes, okay. Also with our 501c, what we do is monies we earned from the car show, we do give scholarships to graduating seniors at the end of the year, if they apply, but sometimes you don't get a whole lot of them. But, what we're asking for is, last year you guys were generous enough to help us with the show because our main donor was scared because of COVID and the group, so they didn't fund us. So we really wanted to say thank you, and we appreciated that last year, which we didn't need this year. If we could just have a free swim day for the kids to go and swim, that's really all we're asking for.
For what kids?
Um,
All kids?
Well, it could be all kids, yeah, I don't care, yeah. We used to just, the kids that came to the car show, we'd send a tag in and then we just paid at the end of the day, but we're trying to rebuild just because last year was a great year, which we still had the car show and it was great. Yeah, it'd be any kid, we're not gonna discriminate, if they wanna go, they go.
Whether they go to the car show or not?
Yes,
they get-
yes, yeah,
I
we,
just wanna make.
yeah, cause in the past 1 year we rented it and then, it's been many years back and we reserved it and it wasn't, there was a communication error, and when the kids went to go, Daxon went to go because it was noon and it was our turn, and then he come back, he's like, I can't swim, Non, go take care of it. So I went and took care of it. But anyways, what happened is they had a birthday party and then we had to wait longer, so.
So, Alicia, I'm just trying to get some
Yeah.
guidelines. What age do you wanna cut it off?
Yeah, and we never have an age, because we really don't get that many, maybe 20 or 30 kids, tops.
Adults, no adults?
It'd probably be easy just to make it a free day.
Yeah.
for the
It's a
free
town.
day.
Yeah, no, the adults, our adults aren't going because they're too busy. Yeah, anybody, I'd say anybody. We don't want to discriminate, so
Yeah, we might lose a lot of money.
you might lose a ton.
All right, so we have a motion.
So moved.
So I'd make a motion that we have a free day at the rec center,
All right,
August 21st, for the 12th annual Battle Mountain Burners Car Show.
I'll second it.
all right. Art made the motion, Brian second, all in favor?
Aye.
Very
Thanks,
good.
thanks
Nice
for
and-
doing this, Alicia.
Thank
You're
you.
a trooper, man.
Yep, it's kind of close to my heart because it's, you know,
Yeah,
Okay,
it's a
so
lot of
the,
work.
so the recreation center just simply advertises this as free swimming today, right?
yes, yeah, and the kids that come from out of town to the car show, they usually will know, and they'll usually try to come get a bracelet from me, but I'll just tell them they can go.
But I mean, when we, like our advertisement and our boards and stuff like that, so for everybody to know, we just say free swimming on this date. right?
Yes, yep,
Thank you,
yep,
Alicia.
no, thank you guys so much, we appreciate
Very
it.
good. Thanks.
Thank you, Alicia.
All right, for discussion and presentation by the Nevada Department of Indigent Defense Service.
You wanna ask anybody's on the line?
Is there anybody on the line for this item? So, are we just tabling it, or?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and
Well,
table.
wait, they have tried to do this before, and we've been on the agenda.
Muted.
And nothing, right?
Unmuted.
Okay, so.
Okay, well, we'll just
We'll just
defer
go
till
ahead
they
and-
can get here, I guess.
In Rancho Valley, our report was due the 1st of September. We held off submitting the report to this commission on this agenda so that we can hear them come in here and make a presentation and try to convince you to give control over to them. And I suspect we weren't gonna do that anyway, so on the next agenda, we're gonna submit the report to you for your approval that we legally have to submit to the commission. The only reason they're here, and I'll again reiterate, we're on record saying this, the only reason they're here to try to get us to let them do it, so they can have more control over our county. That's my opinion. Mr. Fortran, I think you can say.
I may not be able to be here for the next meeting, so as we say in our profession, if it please the court, what is happening is that thanks to a corrupt Clark County judicial system, aided by so-called expert briefcase carriers from New York and Washington, D.C., the state has managed to come up with a solution to a problem that does not exist here, which is not unusual because they can create a new department and a new board and spend more of our tax money taking control away from local people. They have mandated through our legislature, thank you again, Clark County, that we either have to have the state public defender's office jammed down our throats, essentially, or we can submit a plan which, as Mr. Herrera indicated, will be presented to the board for approval and take control ourselves. Essentially, I have been doing this either as a prosecutor or a defense attorney in this county since 1973, and the first 20 or so years of that, we had the state public defender's office. Fortunately, since then, we've had good local or semi-local attorneys who have given us the best service that is possible. The state, the last time we discussed this, put in a bid for the public defender's services in Lander County. Public defender at that time was doing it for $80,000. The state's bid was $230,000. They would staff it with one person in Winnemucca who would come here 2 days a week. I don't believe their position has materially changed. If they take this over, it will cost us 2 or 3 times as much to give less service to indigent defendants in this community. I would urge you to look very seriously at giving them any control whatsoever and to consider the plan that's going to be brought before you, which I think will preserve much of the way in which we furnish public defender services here to our citizens in this community. And like I say, I may not be able to be here for that due to a prior commitment, but those would be my feelings were I here.
And I'll be here to present.
Okay.
It sounds like it's another attack on county sovereignty.
It is.
Right.
They want to run it out of Carson City.
Right.
I want to run it out of Lander County.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't there, it was a lawsuit though that started all this, the
It was a lawsuit that
ACLU?
started, and we were a named defendant because of one reason. You know what that reason was? Not because we had ineffective assistance in counsel cases, because we had none. I did it for 30 years and I had none. Mr. Forgeron did it. We had none out of this county.
Right.
But because we had a contract public defender, we were a named defendant. And because we were a named defendant, we have to go through this bull. I won't finish that word.
So that's okay. So at least when they did the law though, they're allowing us to continue, right? And that's what we're planning on doing.
At the same time, trying to talk us out of doing it.
Well, they have a right to come in and do that, but I mean, the point is, we still have the authority to do like we were doing before, right?
That's not exactly true,
No?
Commissioner Waits. What they have done is they have said that in exempt from the state taking it over, we have until, I think it's mid-September, to submit a plan for their approval. We can't just submit the plan and say, this is what we're gonna do. They have to go over the plan and decide whether or not they're going to allow us.
This new committee,
I'm sorry.
this new committee has the authority to go over our plan?
Yes, the
Okay.
Board of Indigent Defense Services.
Got it.
serves
It is
under
more
the
government
Department
overreach.
Okay.
of Indigent Defense
Okay,
Services.
well, I'm sorry they didn't
Which
show
was
up.
newly created.
Got it, no, I knew that.
$230,000 more than you guys get paid.
Absolutely. This was the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my 31 years of practice here in Lander County. Outrageous.
Very good.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Mike.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. All right, we'll move forward. For discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the proposed agreement between the state of Nevada, the certain political subdivision of the state of Nevada, including Lander County, to establish an agreement for the allocation of proceeds recovered by companies or individuals involved in the making, promotion, distributing, dispensing, and/or sale of opioids, whereby Lander County would receive a portion of the proceeds recovered after deduction of certain legal and federal government costs as defined by the proposed agreement. So,
Will you ask if there's anybody on the line?
is there anyone on the line that wants to speak on this item?
If there's not, I'll speak up.
All right.
Muted.
Bertolo,
Unmuted.
Bertolo and I, Mr. Ramos and I were in many discussions and listening to the settlement, the possible settlement and negotiations started from a series of lawsuits that on the lawsuit against the manufacturers of certain drugs, which causes, particularly our young people from committing suicide and getting addicted to medication. So we did not file a lawsuit personally. We did not have enough cases, but we are one of the counties affected. So the last 6 or 7 or 9 months, we've been trying to see who gets what money out of this up front. And it's based on population, it's based on how things affect the county. And there was a lot of things that went into it. So after we pay off, out of our portion, we have to pay a small portion to pay off for the attorneys that did fight this and that filed this. And then we would get the remaining amount. All 17 counties get a certain amount of money, and certain cities that sued on their own behalf. So it's apportioned accordingly, and it's a fair apportionment. As I said, the county manager and I listened in on this, and we believe it's a fair apportionment. We thought the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, would be here. Very nice guy. What was his name? Do you remember? I don't. But he's kept in touch with us. He even came up with the wording for the agenda item, and just asking us to approve the amount, the portion of proceeds recovered after deduction of certain legal and federal government costs as defined by the proposed agreement. So I recommend this, and I believe Mr. Rollins recommends this, and we will need a motion and an approval by the board to approve this. And I think we're one of the last 2 counties that have done this.
So I think the only condition on it then is that we can use it maybe to even expand from the EMS to emergency services to our sheriffs or any of that, because that's all It all
Emergency.
fits in, so it's just extra money that again, we can use to offset it, right?
Right.
Okay, that's all I saw that was
That's it in a
a
nutshell.
condition, yeah. Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion. Let's see how we want to do this one, how, I'll do, I'm gonna have to read all that in, let's see. That we approve the agreement between the state of Nevada to establish, the allocation of proceeds recovered from companies or individuals involved in the manufacture, marketing, promotion, distribution, dispensing, and/or sales of opiates, and receive our proceeds recovered after the deduction of certain legal and federal government costs as defined by the proposed agreement, and authorize our chair to sign.
I'll second.
All right, Patsy made the motion, Brian second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good.
And then we'll bring it back before you guys on what we receive when we do.
All right, very good. For discussion of possible action to approve, disapprove resolution, 2021-08, providing the transfer of Lander County, County's 2021 private activity bond volume cap to the Nevada Rural Housing Authority in the amount not to exceed $347,052.07. So, Michelle, we have someone on the line to discuss this?
This is Michonne First with the Nevada Housing Authority.
Okay.
Michonne, Commissioner
Can you
Sparks.
hear me?
Yeah, Commissioner Sparks, I have a question. When we roll this money to you, is there anything that prohibits or stipulates the use of that money, that it can be used for Section 8 housing or anything like that?
There are specific uses for these funds, and that is not one of the appropriate uses.
I'm sorry, I can't understand.
You're echoing.
You.
Let's see.
Maybe take us off speakerphone?
I have you on the computer. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's really echoey. Do you guys hear what she said? Did she say there were stipulations for Section 8?
She's echoing too much. I couldn't understand.
Can you repeat yourself, please?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Let me see if I can call in.
You know, every year we have done this, because they come back and certainly help Lander County and a lot of our residents and such. But, I'm wondering for what, Commissioner Sparks is saying, if we didn't give it to them.
Right.
And if we kept it for a couple years, couldn't we build some Section 8 housing ourselves?
Well, that's exactly what
If-
Brian was trying to get at.
If we create our own thing, we fund our own thing rather than having a third party handle it.
Well, they're helping residents, but we need Section 8 housing like we did here before.
But that, yeah, because then we could control it, because what I'm afraid of is if there is Section 8 tied to it, are they obligated to take vouchers from Section 8 from other states where people are displaced? Do they come into your community?
That's what I was concerned with a few years ago, when
Yeah.
we discussed this.
Yeah.
Well, and the other issue is some of the people who are in the John Marvel apartments, their rent is, as far as, it makes no sense to me. They make $1,200 a month, and their rent's $500 or $600 a month, and there's nothing that anybody can do. And so when we call and ask about this, they'll say, well, they've already been adjusted. Well, when over half your income is going towards your rent in those apartments, which are supposed to be for seniors and supposed to have the low rent, then it's kind of, and if you didn't get in on the Section 8 right when you were supposed to, and you're supposed to be looking constantly to see when that money drops, and if you don't, when those poor seniors can't get any more help, and that's crazy to me that we have people in those apartments who are paying over half of their Social Security to rent, And,
You know what would be ideal is to have them be here in person so that they can.
Oh, exactly, I was expecting somebody.
yes, yeah, and I think that's, I think exactly that they, somebody should be here in person in regards to this.
There isn't any reason why we can't defer it and ask them to.
We can certainly do that, and that's my recommendation.
Is there something that needs to be
There
done,
a
like
deadline?
a timeline?
So Lake and Sullivan, for the record, they only have until September 1st to put in their resolution for our approval for the bond. And I don't know if maybe I misunderstood, but as far as rolling it over for a couple of years, like were you saying
Could
that?
we?
You can't. So you only get awarded so much per year, which is the max of what they're taking, and then whatever they don't spend goes back to the state every year. So we only, and it's based off our population, so they have to wait to determine it until the state demographer puts out the population, and then they do our activity bond amount for each county. But you only have that money for that year.
Can we spend it ourselves? If that,
Yes, I believe we can. We've just always chosen to give it to another entity.
I'd say let's defer it, let's look into it, a little bit further and ask them to come in next time.
Yeah, at our next meeting, yeah.
And we've got one more meeting for them, so,
Yes, we do.
okay.
One more meeting, yes. So, will you be available to come in person to our next meeting?
She's not even on there.
Okay.
She's on there.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
Hello?
I can email her too.
I will be able to come to the next meeting.
Oh, great, that would be
All right,
great.
yeah, that would be good. We'd appreciate that.
Under the 26th.
Thank you so much.
The 26th?
26th.
That will be on the 26th.
Yeah, it's the 26th.
Okay, I will make sure that one of our staff is available to get it on myself.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Move forward. Okay.
Jeff, could we look into that then, because if we took the 347,000, we have to spend it?
Yes,
Whatever we don't spend goes back to the state of Abandonment.
But how long do we have to spend it?
The full year.
could we
Okay,
use
because
that?
then we can actually look at some budget for next year.
Well, we could use it to help with the senior housing, to make
Yeah,
their payment,
absolutely
things like
anything,
that.
and then we can add to it because we know it's gonna be pretty much the same every year, and maybe add a couple more.
Is it limited to housing expense?
I'm not exactly sure, but I can reach out to the lady that sends me the bond amount each
Okay.
year and ask if the county can use the money and what we can use it for.
Yeah, because if we can use it for our seniors, that would be ideal,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I can find out some information.
Okay.
Well, I know they have used it like for mortgages and things like
Well, that's
that,
what I
but if
see.
we build our own,
Right.
then,
Even if we build our own.
yeah.
That's what I was thinking, even
Well,
if we budgeted to build our own senior
Instead of
housing
new
and then
home
reimburse
buyers, we're
ourselves.
concerned about seniors
Yeah,
and senior
exactly.
housing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Alright. All right, moving forward.
For a long time.
For discussion and possible action to give a direction to proceed with the septic tank density in the master plan. All right.
Gentlemen, good morning, thank you for waiting.
It's interesting looking at the graphic of the septic tank density, it's like, man, they're really stacked in on some places. I mean, they're just boom, 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 boom.
That should be in the backup.
Yeah, we don't have these, we don't have this.
Thank you.
This is all right.
That's already, so we just have to,
Oh, can I use it on mine? Maybe not.
I don't know.
I got it, that's right, I got a,
John, would you like a copy of this?
I don't know how that works.
Please.
He's the chairman of our planning commission, so.
I think you can.
Try one of those.
You have to go through some process.
well, we'll just
More
use
than
this.
that.
Let's make it easy.
You want a copy, Ron?
Yeah, afterwards I can do it.
I'll go make copies.
Oh, actually, I have that one. I have the same.
I got it. Sorry.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the PowerPoint to start.
I just wanted to let the commission know, the reason this is on here is because I talked to Derek, and there's so many different options and routes to take here with how we deal with NDEP, or to what our density limits are, and where we stand currently for septics, and what size parcels we would want to bring these down to fit septics in, and not take from other property owners. That I feel it's only appropriate that this commission makes this decision. I'm really happy to see John here, so he can at least hear kind of the direction we're going, because this will just come together with the final reading of our master plan. So this isn't the final one. Where John and his board, I think, need to be at the next one when we have the final kind of direction we're taking. But it's important that they hear what's happening today as well a little bit. So.
Okay.
It's on. Yeah, but yeah, back. Is it on, Kathy?
Are we?
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
It's on buy-in.
Mm.
All I know.
Let's see. Is there something I need to push on here?
That's on blue.
Try that. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Technology. Alright, Derek Kirkland with Wood Rogers for the record. So we are contracted with the county to help you guys with your master plan update. And as part of that, one of the issues that was brought up when we started this process was the just looking at septic tanks and looking at lot sizes and things like that. And so as Bert had mentioned, we kind of dove into that a little bit deeper and came up with some different scenarios. And so we'll kind of run through some of the background of that, and then kind of some options going forward. So basically looking at the kind of the structure of how the existing code regulates septic tanks, or how sewers put in place, is specifically for the septic tanks, is basically per code, anyone that wanted to put in a septic tank would have to get a permit through Lander County. And then talking with NDP, anything over, I think it was 4 lots, correct? 5. Anything over 5 lots requires NDP to permit as well. And some of the things as you go through the permitting process that come into play, obviously there's goals and policies in your master plan that guide how and when sewer is going to come online, and some of those things. You also have a lot of code sections in the Code of Ordinances that regulate septic tanks and sewer. And then obviously NDEP has their own set of regulations and NAC code as well. So to give you kind of an overview of your current Code of Ordinances related to this, and I'll just point out a few things just to kind of go through a little bit quickly, and we did leave it with you guys so you have all those. But the main one here for sewer requirements is basically in County Code 1316-220. If you are within 400 feet of any property line of the building to be served, so basically any property within 400 feet of an existing sewer would have to connect to that. So you would typically not be allowed to have a septic tank if you're within 400 feet. One of the other code requirements here, and we'll kind of get into a little bit more detail in a minute, is actually a code that requires new developments at their own expense to basically extend sewer to provide public sewer facilities for their subdivision. So a little bit broad, and we actually have some thoughts there to kind of improve on that code section we'll get to in a minute. Just kind of giving you guys the background of where we're going here. Then we get into kind of the private sewage disposal code requirements. One kind of important one here is if public sewer is not available, you are allowed to basically put in a private sewer disposal system, which would be basically a septic tank. Then this code section gets into the requirements of basically in order to do that, you would have to have a written permit from the town. You'd have to provide plan specifications, and really kind of broad in terms of the county could actually request other things if applicable. And basically the county also has the right to inspect that system as well before it comes on. Kind of getting to the actual septic requirements, so additional rules and regulations. Basically says they have to comply with all the rules and regulations recommended to State of Nevada Division of Health, which is mainly septic tanks are regulated by NDP.
Abandonment of facilities. So this one is kind of another important one that for the county that basically says at such time a public sewer becomes available to a property served by a septic tank, a direct connection shall be made to public sewer in compliance with this chapter. So that basically says as the county brings a sewer system into an area, if you're on a septic tank, then the county has the ability to force the homeowners to or property owners to basically connect to that sewer line.
Let me ask real quick on that line, so if we were to do that, does the county put the expense for the hookup, or does the property owner have to pay for the hookup?
Property owner.
We did this with the water, and as what we did for the water that goes by people's homes when their well fails, we have added a 2-year window there that they pay an additional. So the county pays the upfront, and then they pay it back over a 2-year period on their water bill.
I gotcha.
And in that respect, when they made them connect when they were on Romero Road, they gave them 2 years. And it was mandatory they had to connect, but they were able to make payments on it, but they didn't have to pay for that connection. So yeah, it's the same principle.
Okay. Thank you.
Laura Duval for the record.
And so you do have a connections provision, which is basically this next one that basically says that the utility or the county has the ability to enforce that. And basically the county also has the ability to delay the payment, but if the county chooses to delay the hookup, basically once a property owner's septic tank fails, they would not be allowed to get a permit to replace it. They would have to connect at that time. So there is a little bit, this provision gives you a little bit of flexibility in terms of when you require the property owner to connect. Septic requirements, so there are lot size requirements in county code, which is actually, I will point out that this is actually more stringent than what NDEP allows. Basically the county code is very specific to 1 acre when the water supply is a well located on the lot, and sewage disposal system is a septic tank located on the same lot with either the water supply. So basically it's saying a minimum of 1 acre, essentially. Where NDEP, I'll get into in a minute, actually allows some flexibility to go a little bit smaller. So the county code, in this case, would trump the NDEP regulation. And so getting into the NDEP regulations, and again, this is where I think there is a little bit of a gray area because NDEP will only permit septic tanks for subdivisions that are 5 or more lots. If that makes sense. So if you're so basically and we've had conversations with NDEP to kind of clarify this, and what we understand from NDEP is that they permit septic tanks for subdivisions 5 or more lots. So if an individual lots properties, so if a property owner were to come forward with a single septic tank, or wants to do 1 split and do 2 septic tanks, then that would be up to the county to basically permit that. NDEP would not require any permits for that. Is that basically our conversation?
Yeah, well, having 1 septic per acre is what got us in this trouble with spot zoning. How that happened, I just don't understand when we have 2 commissions to prevent this kind of stuff. Because this is gonna wind up costing the county millions and millions of dollars to run sewer out to these density areas.
Yeah, and we did a lot of GIS work to kind of help, and we'll get into some of the mapping in just a minute, and we'll kind of look at some of those areas. So NDEP, when you look at their lot size requirements, so they are a minimum of 1 acre if you have a well and a septic on the same lot, and that's statewide. And then when you look at their other regulations, then they have some grandfathering clauses, but they will allow you to go down to a 1/4 acre or a 1/2 acre, depending on when the parcelization occurs, if you are served by public water and you have a septic. So if you have septic and public water, you can actually go less than an acre per NDEP regulations. However, going backwards a little bit, the county has a specific requirement that requires a minimum of 1 acre regardless. So that's where I think, having the county permit, and even if you were to do a subdivision of 5 or more lots, the way Lander County set up now in your code, you would have to get a county permit for that, and you would have to get NDEP permit for that. So and in that case, NDEP may look at it may look at it differently, but the county ultimately is going to give that permit for a minimum of 1 acre. So even if NDP were to approve something less, the county still trumps that. And that's the way code is set up today. So getting into a little bit of the density stuff, and so this is where it gets a little tricky because we looked at lot size requirements for NDP, but NDP also looks at the hydrographic basins. In Lander County, we found out there's 3 hydrographic basins. Basically the Boulder Flat area, Clovers area, and the Lower Reese River. Each one, and the way that the NDP looks at these hydrographic basins is each hydrographic basin they set a max density of septic tanks. It doesn't matter if you're hooked up to public water, it doesn't matter if you have a well, that's total density for that hydrographic basin, which is basically the aquifer and what's going on, the groundwater around it. In Battle Mountain specifically, they set a density of 99 per square mile, which is basically half a mile radius. For the Clovers area, they set 109 for Boulder Flat and 108 for the Lower Reese River. Now, going into this gets even more into the weeds, but what happens from there is they say, okay, this is our max density. However, if you exceed that density, and the way they calculate the density is they will take a spot on a map of where that parcel exists, and they draw a half mile radius around it. So that the way they measure it continually moves around based on that property. If you exceed the max density, and NDP says, hey, you're within that half mile radius around your property, it's exceeded that density or is at that density, they give the property owner different options at that point. So option 1 would be that that applicant could go do their own testing and come back and show that if they are the 100th septic tank in the Clover area, that they would not impact the nitrate levels beyond what NDP allows.
And those are the engineers, so they come back with a certificate from an engineer.
Yes,
for
and
the
they
exception.
prove that to NDP that it's not going to trigger anything. And if they do that, NDP will allow each hydrographic basin in the entire state up to 200 septic tanks in basically a half mile radius. But from what we're seeing here in the Clovers area, and I'm just use that as an example because that's the Clovers area is the one, as you can see on the map, is where you are closest to that max density. Everywhere else doesn't seem to be an issue today or in the near decade, right? So looking at the Clovers area, if someone were to come on, they would have to prove to NDP that basically they are not going to create an issue with nitrates in the groundwater. If they come back and they say there are higher nitrates and we would create a problem, NDP will give them another option, which is to actually install a different type of septic tank that basically filters all the nitrates out. And so NDP is not going to really not allow a septic tank. They're going to make you go through the process as a property owner to prove that you're not going to create a problem in these areas. Now, with that being said, if somebody comes back and there is already a problem, obviously that creates a whole nother issue, and then NDP and the county are trying to figure out, what issues they have going on. Now, from what we understand, there hasn't been, we haven't seen or heard of any issues in any of the areas in Battle Mountain in terms of water quality or anything like that. I don't know that exists. So as of today, and looking at kind of the most dense area of Clover's, the Clover hydrographic basin, within a half a mile, and doing GIS work, we basically picked an area where we felt there was kind of the highest cluster of septic tanks, and what we found was there's about 98 in the most dense area, which NDP allows up to 99. So you're kind of bumping right up to that max density. But this is also in an area that is near existing sewer services. So kind of looking at this proactively is it appears there's not really an issue today, and the proactive approach to this is the county's already looking at serving some of this area with septic tank, or with sewer service. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bert.
Well, not necessarily sewer service, but maybe water.
It already has water.
Right? Because if we give them water, that's the whole problem is sewers that might, contaminate our water. That's what the whole problem is. So we might not necessarily have to run a water line and a sewage line, whatever's cheaper, why do the water line?
We already have water.
So yeah, we currently do have water there.
Well, if they have water, then that's the main problem. So when we talk about the 99 is if it's gonna contaminate the water. And with our own system, if we've got ours out there, then that really doesn't apply.
So you are correct, but there's another piece to this. So NDP, when they look at the max density, they're not looking whether it's served by water or if it's served by well. They're just looking purely
But
at
where do they get their counts?
So these came, so we actually got the data from
It's
the
all from
assessors.
landers because they don't keep counts.
Yeah,
We have to keep our own.
correct.
And
So-
we have good records.
And I think what we found is really realistically when you look at this, when you look at the maps, you look at the data, you look at everything that's available to us, right? I mean, it's not 100%. This is what it is, but looking at all the data and the information that's available to us today, it looks like the Clover area is probably the closest to that max density, and we haven't heard of any, tests that have come back that show that there's high nitrates. NDP didn't express any concerns over the area, and so going forward, I think the question that was asked is, going forward, are we going to impact other property owners that may want to develop in the future? And I think the answer to that is being proactive. This area is already being looked at to be served by sewer, which, once the sewer comes on, there's already provisions in code that would allow these property owners to hook up to the sewer, which automatically starts to reduce your septic density in that area. So the area that is of biggest concern in Battle Mountain already has a proactive approach to put that area on sewer, and everywhere else we looked at already has larger lots. And so there's some things, moving on to some of the goals and the policies of the master plan to also be proactive with that. Is a lot of the goals and policies that are set up in the master plan are for the county to look at areas of future growth, look at areas where it makes sense to extend sewer, and that was the max density area you're bumping up closest to is one of those areas that the county's already looking at as part of those goals and policies of the master plan. And then as we kind of move on, looking at areas where you don't have issues now, a lot of those are planned typically for larger lots, and there was a policy in the master plan that all planned development with residential densities of more than 1 unit per 2.5 acres should be included in the service area for a treatment facility. So, and you're already doing that. It's already something that's being looked at. So I think that'll help. And then kind of looking at some other future options that we could look at. I'm going to kind of jump to option 2. So obviously there's a do nothing approach, which is we feel, as a commission, we feel that what's going on today and where we're at and the one area that's approaching max density, we're already looking at sewer services. You could kind of leave things the way they are and not change it. The option 2, which is one of the things that we're sort of recommending, because there are some things that we feel like you could clean up just to kind of help resolve issues going forward, would be option 2, which is continue to let NDP and NAC kind of regulate from a perspective of 5 or more lots. Let the county continue their process with also permitting them to kind of oversee that and make sure that it's not just getting a permit from NDP, that the county's also kind of watching what's going on and making sure that they're following not only NDP, but they're also following county regulations, which are actually more stringent than NDP. And then we recommend, especially looking at the zoning ordinance for new developments. And one way, with a simple clarification, I think will help going forward, is that we add to this one and we say the developer of a new subdivision of lots less than 2.5 acres shall at his expense construct necessary extensions of the public sewer system to provide public sewer facilities for each lot in his subdivision. So that way, if you're not precluding a developer to come in and do something a little more dense to acre lots, but what you're saying is going forward from this new ordinance adoption is that if you would like to subdivide something less than 2.5 acres, then you would expect them to come in with a sewer plan. And so it gives some more meat to to that ordinance in terms of new development. And then that way people that have current lots, they have existing regulations in place, and you don't have to worry about going back and trying to fix something that already exists. You're kind of being more proactive. And so that's some of the options. The other option you could have is to go even more stringent than that and actually just change everything to kind of go away from an acre, go to 2.5 acre, go to larger lots. But then you kind of run into this issue where you have lots that are less than 2.5 acres that someone hasn't developed on, and so you kind of start to run this issue where you're, whether or not you're taking away development rights from an existing parcel, and so there are grandfathering clauses that we could add to that. Those are kind of a quick rundown of where you're at and where we think you could go in the future to help be proactive in resolving some of the future issues. With that, we could be happy to answer questions that you have.
Just a clarification, I understand with the development and the 2.5 acres, but if somebody out there owns their own parcel in 2.5 acres and they want to subdivide and give an acre, that's in the other part. You said grandfathered in, but grandfathered in if they sell? No.
They have-
Okay, then how do we address that they sell, that they can sell?
So that would be, basically what we're recommending is the developer of a new subdivision
Right.
of lots less than 2.5 acres. So they wanted to come in and subdivide less than 2.5 acres after the day that this is adopted.
No, I understand that.
Then they would be subject to
I'm
that.
saying the individual out there who owns 5 acres and wants to sell all 5 acres off as 5 acres.
Yeah, we could I see where you're going.
I'm just
because
saying
then it
how-
wouldn't necessarily be a subdivision. It would be
No,
a
it's
parcel.
not, they're just selling. So how they go before the planning commission, and then the planning commission says,
No, the plan, to sell it, you don't have to go in front of the planning commission.
no, but if they have to divide, I'm saying they have 5 acres, they want to divide it.
If they want to divide it,
Yeah.
they'd have to go by this new,
So they can
Right,
only get
and they're saying-
2.5 acre parcels to have 2 septics in order to fit the.
right.
Okay, that's what I'm
They
saying.
wouldn't be able to get 5 septics on that 5 acres.
Or 10.
They would only be able to get 2 because 5 acres splits.
Okay, so we're locking it in for the people that already have it.
If we take option 3, if they have 5 acre parcel and they want to split it,
Splitting it is fine, we're okay with the 2.5.
yes, but if they want to split it into 4,
Okay,
5 parcels, they can't do it.
they can't.
All
They
can do-
would have to hook. The way we could write it is that they would have to extend sewer services at their own expense, basically.
On their own expense.
The only real remedy that there is to run water and sewer out to these developing areas so that we don't run into issues because of Mr. Wintel's beloved loophole.
Well, option 3 would take care of that, Arthur. Option 3?
Yeah.
That would take care of that.
And so that would require, and we could look at, and I think what the purpose of today is to get direction from the commission so that we can work with the district attorney and with Bert and basically kind of craft some ordinances that we would come back with as part of this master plan that would support kind of what that direction is. And so, obviously these are some examples, but, it'll take a little bit of time to kind of craft something, an actual ordinance that would go towards option 3 that would, basically, it wouldn't just apply to any new developments, it would apply to all parcelizations, basically.
I would recommend option 3 personally, from the district attorney's office.
We're not voting on this today, we vote on it when we do the master plan,
Yeah,
right?
this is a
this is just
recommendation.
direction.
Yeah.
Well, it's an action item to give,
To give the direction
to
on what
give
we
the
want.
direction. Unlike if you want option 1, option 2, or option 3 or something.
We don't want any septic issues.
And I recommended option 3. Bartolo, do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I think that what we're trying to avoid here is getting where we ever do have a failed groundwater system and are forced to go out there and put in septics or have I'm not finding the right words here, but not a homeowners association, but what's the right word that I'm looking for? where the homeowners, a special use district or
Special assessment district.
Special assessment district's the word I'm looking for, where them homeowners actually pay more on their tax roll because the county had to run services out to them because we weren't, doing our due diligence right now. So that's really ultimately what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, but if we're doing this, we're doing it all of Lander County, and don't forget, we've got a lot of 1 acre parcels in the south.
Well,
So now they wouldn't be able to have a septic?
well, they would be grandfathered
Their
in.
grandfather in.
So I.
Well,
my
wait a minute, they
recommendation
haven't
is-
bought the property yet,
is
it's just up
option
for
3
sale.
With grandfather clauses.
So the option 3 would be for new development, correct?
Correct.
So everything existing now would comply with current regulations where as long as it meets the criteria of the state and the county, it's for future new development. If somebody wants to develop a new property, then that's where this comes into play, that we want it to be a minimum of 2.5 acres.
I understand that, but the question is development or just buy, because look at all of our lots.
Development means parceling, splitting it out. Take 20, 30 acres and splitting it out.
So everything that's already split already, if you buy half an acre in Kingston or a quarter of an acre, it's still okay.
It's existing.
Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe, as things lie right now, with us putting the sewer where we're putting it down Sheep Creek and some of our proposed projects that are going to be coming in the next year or two, that as everything lies now, we could fill up all them areas and still not be over density.
Correct.
So this is just a safeguard to make sure that in the future we don't have these splits to a point that we have over density issues and have to run it out, or have these zones that taxpayers end up paying additional for.
Well, and you still can put in here that, to go beyond it, so we can still get the certification from the engineer, right? If it's an individual, if you
created an ordinance that basically said, any new parcelization, so anytime you split a parcel, it would have to be a minimum of 2.5 acres. So if somebody owned 5 acres right now, this ordinance goes into place, and then 2 days after the ordinance goes into place, they try to come in and parcel it to 1 acre and put them all on septic. The answer would be no. You have to be a minimum of 2.5 acres. So they could only split it twice instead of 4 times, essentially, or 5 times.
Right.
Does that make sense?
The present ordinance does not allow for quarter acres or half acres.
I just think we're hurting some individuals that might want to split their land, or they bought 10 acres and now they need to sell off 7, and they're not developers. I'm just saying I'm concerned about what we're doing to individuals that own.
Buy 10 acres and split it into 40 quarter-acre lots?
I guess, and
No,
to answer to that, Miss Patsy, is that I think is what we're trying to do on the other side of that is to make sure that we don't hurt all property owners within that area to have to pay into that special use for us to run special services out there. Where right now, if we grandfather the people in that are in, we won't exceed NDEP's limits and or the county's limits, and put ourselves at risk later, or property owners at risk later to develop. Personally, now if they want to split it and start making small subdivisions, 3 houses at a time, which is part of what got us to where we are, that they can't overdo that 2.5 acres. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and I understand where you come from on that, and people that want to develop, I understand. But I'm thinking about a property owner that just owns 5 acres, whatever. And all of a sudden, with the times, they decide they're gonna sell those 3. And so they sell to 3 individual.
Okay, I think the confusion is,
I can't hear you, Laura.
the confusion is, you have zoning, so everything that's outside the city boundaries and stuff, we don't have any zoning. The smallest we have is 1 acre, which is real close to the town limits. You've got some in Kingston as well, so I think that's what you're focusing on. But this is for future development, where we are gonna be running sewer lines in some of these areas. That's not even an issue. So a developer could come in and put in a subdivision of, 1/3 quarter acre lots, as long as he pays the cost to connect to the sewer.
No, I understand that.
But a 10-acre parcel out in Hilltop cannot split any smaller than 5 acres, because it's a 5-acre minimum. You can only split it into 2. You cannot split it into 10 1-acre parcels, because it's not zoned for that. So what this is ensuring is that in areas where they do have perhaps 1 acre zoning already in place. They wanna split a bunch into 1 acre parcels. We're saying you can't do that. And if they don't have access to public sewer, if they wanna put it on a septic, because we already have an area that is already affected, that's real close to septic density. So this is just a safeguard for the future. I don't see this ever really being a big issue, to be honest with you.
And
It's just kind of a safety net.
To add on that too, if to add on to what Laura was saying is if you had so say you had a 1 acre parcel today in Kingston, you could still put a septic on it even after this ordinance, because we'll add a grandfather clause that says it starts on a certain date, which is the date the ordinance.
No, I understand that, but I'm thinking of like, I had 6 acres and I just sold 3. Okay, but they're individual. There's 3 acres, so those people, if I was zoned with the 3 acre and I went before the planning commission and said, can I divide them into 3 acres, then they'd say, probably not, because.
They would say, yes, you can, because our current ordinance allows 1 acre parcels.
Correct.
But we're gonna do a new ordinance, and then, so that ordinance.
They have until the new ordinance.
Right, but I'm talking about the new ordinance. I'm saying this would prohibit the individual that's not a developer but just wants to sell a couple of their acres.
We give proper notice and stuff, they have the opportunity to do it prior to new ordinance coming in. We can't hold it up for a few property owners.
Okay.
How can you do that?
I don't anticipate this being an issue at all. In any instance that I can think of, I can't see where this would really be a significant issue.
John, you have any thoughts on this? Speak up. Speak up, John.
John Williams, the only thing I can see with this discussion is these gentlemen are looking at our best interest, and I agree with the recommendation. And Mrs. Waits is talking about something that I have an issue with, as a board, planning commission, we take issue with. We try to protect the small property owners. I think the thing that you're missing, Patsy, is the density in a 1 mile acre, or a 1 mile area. Those people are going to be protected.
No, I understand all that part, I do, but I'm saying when we're making an ordinance of saying this, I just wondered if there was any exceptions other than grandfathering, to the.
I still don't understand, I'm listening to this and I don't understand what exceptions you're speaking to.
I don't either.
I can't grasp that.
People who have bought 10 acres and are gonna sell some off.
People have bought 10 acres, excuse me for interrupting, but 10 years ago. And next year, they decide to parcel some of it off. Is that what you're talking about?
Right, let's just say 2 acres, right.
Okay, and they want to parcel off 2 acres. All right, as long as they fall within, number one, the parameters of our zoning, that in that area, that 2 acres is acceptable to parcel, okay, then they're good there. And as far as the septic, if they're out there where they have 10 acres, and they haven't done anything with them for 10 years or 50 years, I'm sure that the area of infatuation with septics is not going to allow them to do that without any problem.
Well, but if we put an ordinance that prohibits it, that's what I'm saying.
No, it doesn't prohibit it,
No, it
you have
doesn't.
a grandfather clause. The grandfather clause goes back in time and allows them to do it.
Exactly.
It's for future splits.
My
What I'm
understanding-
talking about.
my
They've had 10 acres,
understanding-
They've had it for 10 years, now they wanna split it, and it's 1 acre zoning, so they wanna split it into 10. What we're saying is that it's now a minimum of 2.5 to put in those.
Okay, but you're saying they're grandfathered in, but they've just sold it
Yes, so
to
if we.
someone else. I've sold it to you. Can you do it? You're not grandfathered
Just
in.
for clarification, if we put anything else in here to make exceptions, we've just created a new loophole.
Yeah.
The same thing that we are trying to avoid.
Yeah.
can I offer an old adage? If it ain't broke, let's don't fix it.
Well, they can do it now, but they can't do it if we do try and fix it, so that's,
They can do it, but a new owner can't do it.
that's what I'm saying.
Right.
And that's what they're doing, they're selling it to someone who can't do
But
anything.
that's the reason why we're doing this is to begin with, to prevent that from happening. So if they own it and they wanna do it now, that's fine, but if they sell the 10 acres to someone else and that person wants to subdivide it, they can only,
Exactly.
they can't do it. And that's their issue.
So the buyer needs to tell them to do it on their grandfather before they buy it.
Okay,
It's that simple.
I think there's a confusion.
Yeah,
It
but I
doesn't
think
matter
the
if you
zoning-
already own it, you can't, because the whole purpose is any new development, doesn't matter if you own it now, you own it 10
Right.
years ago, whatever. You can't subdivide it and put in septics in less than 2.5 acres where there's no access to.
But I think the key point that's being missed here is that currently, the ground that we have, if everybody were to put in septics, without any subdividing, and following the zoning codes that we have, we do not exceed density. So right now is the time to grandfather it in when we do not exceed density. Then anybody that wants to move forward, if they wanna sell that piece of property to me or you, we still have the right to build, put a septic on it and everything else. But if they subdivide that and make that smaller, it's not gonna fit because we will overdo our density, and that's where the problem lies, and that's where our zoning is very important, is because as long as our zoning is proper and we're building from the inside out, it should cover us on all ends. I am concerned with putting any sort of language in there that creates a new loophole that we've done all this to avoid.
If we put exceptions in there, we're creating loopholes, there's no question.
So there's just to add, so, you know, from our experience, I've seen grandfathering a couple different grandfathering clauses. You could have a grandfathering clause that says, you know, as of the date is the date that the ordinance is adopted, or you can set a different date. So say the ordinance is adopted in September, you could say by January 1st, you could say, give them a year. You can kind of set that time frame. The other way I've seen it done, and so that if you go that route, it would basically give somebody, if they own 10 acres, they would have a chance they would have a 6-month window or a 12-month window to actually subdivide it one last time. Or the other option is if you wanted to kind of give people that option going forward with a little more flexibility. I've seen it where they basically say parcels created by a certain date. So if someone owns 10 acres, they get a one-time chance to subdivide, but once those new parcels are created, you can't go further.
Out of respect for our planning commission and our commission, because that's who these fall on, I would hate to see them get flooded with permits when we know our current zoning and our current parcels fit and don't exceed. I caution the commission at moving forward with something like that where somebody could come sliding in here and try to permit a whole bunch of these in a small window and put you and the planning commission in a situation where you could become at odds again.
You know that'll happen.
I don't see that happening.
John?
Because people that
I have one last question. I'm a little bit confused, and that doesn't take much for me, so bear with me, please. It appears to me that in one aspect, we're talking about like a major subdivision, but then in Patsy's case, we're talking about an individual. Okay, major subdivisions have a whole different set of rules. Am I wrong? In your case, there's another set of rules that apply. And what I'm reading from these gentlemen here is nothing changes that. Correct? Basically, nothing has changed other than the fact that we are going to nail down some things that we've needed to do for a long time in this. And it will not affect the private individual. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen. If a person has 10 acres, as Patsy states, and they're not gonna be constrained, if this passes, by a time limit to subdivide. As long as you stay within the individual ownership subdivision rules that we already have in place. Is that correct?
So yes and no. I guess if we were to change the ordinance, then basically it would be for all parcels. So if you,
Yeah, it
if,
does affect everything.
so if someone owned 10 acres as an individual and wanted to subdivide it, or a developer came in and bought that 10 acres and wanted to subdivide it, they'd play by the same rules.
Okay,
2.5 acre
now we're
minimum.
subdividing. We're talking about parceling. That's still in the mix, right?
Yeah, so basically what is being discussed, correct me if I'm wrong, is that any parcel, so if you had 5 acres, you had 10 acres, you had 100 acres, it would all be the same. Basically, the most you could subdivide and still use septic is 2.5 acres.
2.5 acres, right.
So if you own 5 acres, you would be subject to the same rules as the developer that owns 100 acres.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Unless you put a grandfather clause in there, and let the person who owns that 5 acres, the grandfather clause can allow them to subdivide into 1 acre parcels. That's what the grandfather clause is for.
Well, the grandfather.
But that only helps you
And
to
where do
sell
we
it.
put the parameters there?
Doesn't help the new person that just
Well, the
bought it.
parameters would go back to what our current ordinance are for people that already own the parcels.
And I think the reason this is kind of overlapping, just for clarification for everybody, is we've had individuals that are acting as developers, but only doing it with small 2 and 3 at a time, as opposed to going with a full development of 5.
They're being the law, subsequent parcel.
Yes, exactly. So that's what we're trying to address here, and that's why there's some overlap in this conversation that creates some confusion.
And it sounds to me like if that's the loophole you really wanted to address, it seems like the grandfather clause would be a 6-month window, a 12-month window, that if somebody wanted to do one more subdivision, they would have a certain amount of time to do it, and then after that it's 2.5 acres for everybody.
Exactly.
Right.
So that way you're not precluding someone from doing it in the near future if they already have plans to do it. But if someone doesn't have plans to do it now, then they're going to be subject to the new rules.
Well, and there again, are we grouping in on individual wanting to parcel off with subdividing?
Any division of land.
Yeah, there you go.
Whether you call it subdivision, subsequent parceling, parcel split, whatever you call it, this is just dividing a piece of land in whatever manner it is because of the septic density issue. So that's what it's about. It doesn't matter
Correct.
what type of map it is.
Don't our current ordinances divide things out to parceling of properties, subdivisions?
Yeah.
Yes.
But we're just talking about putting in
So you're
septic.
grouping parceling with
Yes.
subdivision? That's my question.
All division of lands,
All
yes.
divisions of
All
land.
division of land,
Subdivisions
right.
fall under.
Okay,
a whole different-
that's gonna be the language then?
Probably.
And I think that's where our direction today is going to be to work with your district attorney and city manager to make sure that we get that right, and what comes back proposed, makes sense as an ordinance, and everybody's in agreement on it.
And have public hearings
Yeah.
sometime.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Well, I see Patsy's concern now. Yeah.
Well, it was just for the residents, but I mean, for the smaller individual, not for the developer that's buying.
And I think to add to that, when you think about the grandfathering clause and kind of what you're going to, if someone has plans today and they're, hey, I got this 5 acres and I want to subdivide it, within the next 6 months.
I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking of the one who's been sitting there on it and now times are tough. And now let's just sell off those parcels and because we have to live, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I can sell it because I'm grandfathered, but it isn't gonna help if those new people can't put in a septic. And they don't have 2.5 acres, so that's all, it was just a concern.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
there's a few people around
That's
it
true.
in those areas. Not that I bought it to subdivide someday.
So
Not that.
they'll have either 6 months or a year to do what they need
Right,
to do.
so.
And it'll be
that's-
announced publicly, and they'll know
and I'm
that
just
it's
asking what we
forthcoming.
can do, and if we can't, we can't.
Well, we can
And if
give
it's
them a year.
loophole,
We can
we
give
don't
them
wanna
up to a
create,
year.
we don't wanna
That's
go
what we
there.
can do.
It's fine.
But then there again, I have to revert back. If you're talking, if I get you right, you're talking 10 acres and greater, 5 acres and greater?
Small.
People with those plots of lands are in areas where I wouldn't think, I'm a court, there's gonna be exclusions, I'm sure, but, if you're in areas like that, I don't think, septic density is gonna be a problem.
I don't either.
I really wouldn't.
Well,
I
it's
wouldn't
not,
see it.
but we're creating this stop the density, but it isn't related just to that basin. It's all Lander County that's doing the ordinance, so we're affecting everybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've got a
So-
2-acre parcel
Well,
here.
we wanna protect the other two from becoming like Clover.
I understand.
I mean, that's the whole purpose of what we're doing.
No, I understand, I'm just bringing it up because I'm saying, you know, I've got 2 acres and I wanna sell it, but I can't divide it. And
Our
they aren't gonna let me
responsibility-
divide it.
I thought our responsibility was to protect Lander County,
You can
not to
divide it
help individuals make money.
You can divide it for up to a year.
I would say if you did it for a year, after
Right.
that, I mean, you put public comment and you put it out there so people see that, then that's, I mean,
Yeah.
at that point, then.
Can
So
you guys
that's
explain
why-
something for us?
Yeah.
Because, so if we're saying that we have an area that the zoning allows 1 acre minimum. And so there's all these parcels that are already 1 acre minimum. We have 10 1-acre parcels that are already there, they're vacant, nobody's developed them yet. Even if this goes into place, because those are existing parcels, those are not new created parcels, these are existing, they can still put in a septic.
Correct, that's what I was saying with the blanket,
Yes.
right now, how it lies, is everybody there that's like in Kingston that has 1-acre parcels,
They already do.
they already exist.
They've been vacant, there's about
Yes.
60% of them vacant. that
They
are
can
not
still put in a
occupied.
septic
They can
on
still put
every
in
one of them
septic.
1-acre
Yes.
parcels and still be under the density that's, right now,
This is
we
for
could still
future
cover it.
development, future splits.
Correct.
So it'd be any
However-
new division of land after whatever date is decided in the ordinance.
New division of
Here's
any
where it
land.
gets complicated. So you have 20 acres in 1-acre zoning. This is where it becomes a problem. You can split it into 1-acre parcels because the zoning allows it, but you can't put septics on if it's 2.5. So doesn't the zoning then conflict with the minimum size? So is this more geared towards properties that are 5-acre minimum or 10-acre minimum?
I think it's geared to your first scenario, and they would not be precluded from or to subdividing to 1-acre parcels. They would just have to run sewer to those at that
Okay,
point.
that's what I mean, but they would not, so don't we have a problem if it's zone 1-acre parcel, public sewer's not available? I guess we would have to change the zoning to 2.5 acres, and that's where I think it's getting a little bit confusing.
Well, that, or they would have to do like Randy Clark did it out here on his, industrial park.
Yes.
He put in a private little lift station. So it has a 2-inch or 4-inch line that pumps over to our municipal sewer and dumps in, but it pumps a fair distance to get there.
Yeah.
And that's some of the considerations that these people would have to do. And hopefully that starts the build small onto your community building out.
So they can still split it all down to ones, but they're going to have to connect to
Sewer.
city
Municipal,
sewer,
yes.
which I understood all that. At their expense.
Or provide what Randy did
Or do something.
at his expense.
And
That
just
makes sense.
so for further clarification, when we talk about an engineered septic that does not create any additional just nitrates to the groundwater, that is in a perfect world that's pumped properly, that is seeded properly with the proper bugs, that is maintained to the 9. So I also caution the county with that because I've seen many of them fail worse or as bad as any other septic because they aren't maintained properly, the bugs aren't taken. There's a whole bunch of things that go with that, or somebody dumps a little bit of bleach down the toilet and kills all their bugs, so it's just for, the engineered systems aren't always what they come off to be in a meeting like this, a perfect world.
It seems option 2 would make more sense then, because it already clarifies in there. Consider policy that does not allow land use and zoning changes to densities less than 1 unit per 2.5 acres unless served by sewer. So it seems like option 2 makes a little more sense, because it kind of clarifies that.
What I think what it would be is a kind of a mix between option 2 and option 3. I think we would further clarify option 2 instead of saying new developments, new subdivision. We would clarify that we would basically amend that section to, instead of new developments, it would be any new division of land.
Division, yes.
Okay,
so that it's not just related to developments, because that's what was kind of confusing about this code to begin with, was it was only talking about new developments, but it wasn't. I think that's where the loophole has been coming is people are coming in, an individual property owner creating 2 lots, has been able to get around that.
Right, so
no new
it would be a
divisions.
hybrid between 2 and 3,
Yes,
Okay.
with the grandfather clause.
with the grandfather clause.
So I have a question to make sure I'm understanding. So I have 10 1 acre parcels that I wanna sell, and somebody buys it, they still can put a septic on it, cause it was already subdivided.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
That parcel was
That's
created prior to.
Okay.
That's the
That's
grandfather
okay, I
clause
just
that we're
wanna make sure
speaking
That's
of.
why the division of land is important
Okay.
language to put in.
All right.
Bert, I got a question. Where are we on capacity with our water treatment facility? Are we at 60%, 70%?
No, so we on average take in about 365,000 gallons a day into our treatment plant. It can at maximum capacity can take 890,000 gallons a day.
Okay, so we need more customers.
It won't hurt us to have more customers.
There we go.
Alright,
So the engineered septic, that's the one where they've gotta maintain it and they gotta empty it and.
Yeah, pumping it properly, and it my septic at my house or they're all engineered septics.
Right.
So in a perfect world, they don't. But it doesn't always work that way. The proper pumping and maintenance of them is a big deal, and I don't think most homeowners have that knowledge to know what the proper maintenance of one
until
is.
they fail.
Yes.
So gentlemen, would your
But when it's plugged,
recommendation be the hybrid between 2 and 3 with the grandfather clause?
It's based on the discussion. It seems like we could work together to craft something that I think
That's my
would satisfy.
Yeah, I agree.
So you guys,
It would be very straight language for the.
so
Planning
if
commission
you
as well.
agree with that, you can make a motion on that.
On option 3.
No,
Hybrid.
2 and 3 with the grandfather clause. It's part of 2, part of 3 with the grandfather clause.
Yeah, somebody else can make the motion. I think there's a difference between development and destruction.
I do think that closes the loophole that we're concerned with, and still gives every property owner the right to build and do as they see fit moving forward, and staying within the zoning code, making planning commission's job a lot easier.
And so the dividing from here
So
on
that
out.
would take care of all your concerns, Arthur, if we do that option.
2 and 3.
It's a hybrid between 2 and 3 with the grandfather clause. Anybody wanna make a
So,
motion?
so I have a motion from someone?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we, give direction to our master plan guys on the septic tank density to combine 2 and 3 as a hybrid with the, grandfather clause.
I'll second that.
Alright. So Art made the motion, Brian seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Alright.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for your
Thanks.
patience. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot of information to
John,
digest.
you don't understand how helpful you are.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No, I'm
Me
telling
neither.
you.
It's very informative, and you got a good crew here.
I know.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, John. We appreciate you showing up.
Thank you, John. Just a comment, guys, the way that we have it written here, we keep referring to getting approval from the town.
Where are we written at?
Well, at the very beginning where they're saying what, getting your septic tank and getting approval from the town.
Yeah, it'd be county.
It's the county.
Yeah,
We
we
might
are,
have,
we are substituting county
Yeah.
for town, cause you read it and it's in here, town,
Yeah.
town. And I go, that's very confusing
So, yeah.
to us down there.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's county.
There's still some language changes that are gonna take place, the shalls and some of the other stuff we're looking at.
Okay, so then we're tabling 14, correct?
Table 14. Is anybody here? Oh, Larry Cruz, we better tell them, we better explain to them.
What are we doing on 14?
They wanna table it.
Well, it's agendized for discussion, possible action to approve, disapprove, determination, and or modification of the existing contract. We don't have the existing contract in front of us for you guys to look at to choose whether or not you wanna do either way, so we need to table this until we have been provided.
Okay.
Okay?
Done.
So.
I don't know if Larry wants to give
He
a,
has to unmute himself, I can't unmute him.
Larry, there he is. He's on.
Muted. Didn't even have any comments.
No.
Let's just.
Unmuted.
Okay.
So we're okay with just tabling it?
So Larry, we're tabling that now, we don't even have the contract in front of us.
Okay, moving on.
Okay. The,
I didn't hear the agenda item.
we have, tabled your item, Larry. Yes, sir.
We don't have the
Okay,
contract,
so-
we don't have the contract in front of us, Larry, so we don't wanna discuss what we can't see in front of us.
Okay, we did send out quite a few of the subdivision maps for processing last night.
9:30.
And we did CC all the county commissioners.
Yes, we seen that. We'll review it and then, we'll have you on the next agenda for the 26th.
Okay, very good. Also, for the last meeting, I have made contact with Craig Mistretti. He did say he totally forgot about it, and back in early spring, Nate Costin, who is sitting with me here, the conference call we had with Kyle Bright and Councilor Ted, Lander County took responsibility for talking to Craig. So anyway, I told Craig, I need your help because you're holding up our ability to divide parcels where your mom's parcels are. So anyway, we'll try to work with him to get him to move forward.
Okay, Larry,
We can't discuss it.
not to cut you off, Larry, we appreciate it, but this is not an update, and we will get you on this next agenda because we can't discuss it as it stands right now.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much, commissioners.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you. All right, so do we have any?
We do, we need to,
We need litigation, so you need to go through, ask for public
Oh,
comment,
yeah.
and then adjourn, and then we'll have litigation.
Okay, so do we have any further public comment?
I just want that on the record.
Okay.
Then we'll go into litigation
Correspondence?
after. Yeah, call for all that stuff.
Yes, I haven't gotten that far, I was just, all right, so do we have any correspondence or future agenda items?
I did have a comment on the correspondence, and one was the letter from our Baptist pastor in Austin, that they are doing the special EMS recognition. Word starts with an R, it's about that long. And that's Saturday at the park, and that's for all of our EMS personnel, and the whole group and public are invited, so. Please read the letter.
All right.
For future items, I'm wondering if maybe, could we get the tennis courts on for a future item? That needs to go on the agenda, right?
we most certainly could. We didn't budget for that, but we could put it on as an agenda item to discuss. It'd be better off as a budget item.
The airport, water line, we had it budgeted, but we need to.
We can definitely discuss that. Yep.
Okay, any others?
Would you guys like me to try to put together an informational town hall?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
What
You know,
Ross
that
was
would
talking
be
about this
great
morning?
with Dr. Wilcourt there.
Absolutely. Dr. Wilcourt and Dr. Ross. And invite the school board, hospital board.
I was thinking just as a community informational piece, I'm not sure.
Just invite town?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Right, so then do we have any public comment? Not hearing any, so a motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second?
Second it.
All right,
So Brian made the motion, JR second, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright, now we're going to go into a litigation meeting. So did I cover it all?
This conference is no longer being recorded.
We're doing it here or in Eric's office?